order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The school board will continue to close session tonight to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Under Wisconsin statutes 19.85, parent 1, parent C, considering study hall aide, math interventionist aide, middle school football coach, high school girls volleyball, basketball, high school girls volunteer basketball coach, high school volunteer cross-country coach, elementary secretary, and special education aide. With that, we will begin with the presentation from the key benefits concepts. So who would like to introduce?
We've been working with Linda from KBC on our Fund 73. We discussed setting it up last month, and she's here to give a presentation on the process and the different advantages to it.
I'm assuming you want me to stand up?
Yep, that's great. Yep.
Thank you. Again, like he said, my name is Linda Bont. I'm with Key Benefit Concepts. We're the actuarial firm that has been working for quite a number of years with Sevastopol School District, as well as probably 85–90% of the school districts in the state of Wisconsin that have post-employment benefits requiring an actuarial valuation. Okay. Did you make more copies?
I did. I put with those.
Oh, you did? You
Yep.
put them with mine. Okay, so you want to hand these out. You can do that? Okay. This is a copy of the slides that we're going to see up there. I just wanted to make sure that you could follow along. Some of them might be a little bit tiny.
He's already seen it.
I've seen it many times already.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's probably seen it.
Linda and Carl will go back and forth on this, so it's.
Do I click this to go to the next slide?
Yep.
Or just... There we go. Okay, so I want to make this short and sweet, but I don't want to lose you along the way. So what we're going to talk about today is the current position with post-employment benefits, what our responsibilities are, what brought us to talking about this tonight, and then some additional opportunities as long as we're talking about this. As Kyle mentioned, review of our options for Fund 73, which is a trust account for funding the post-employment benefit, the plan design and post-employment HRA or health reimbursement arrangement. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then the proposed approach. Let's look at what the options are, then let's look at the proposed approach, and then the board resolutions and trust adoptions to move forward. Okay, the current position is that we have post-employment benefits that are funded on a pay-as-you-go basis. And there's no problem with that. A lot of school districts are doing that. It just comes from general fund. When the person retires, whatever the benefit is, you pay from that, okay? All the benefits up to this point in time were determined and funded at retirement. But what we're coming across right now is that with the exception, we have an individually negotiated district administrator benefit, and now I believe there's a second administrator that is also getting that benefit. And so that brings us to a situation where we need to look at it. So a recap of what we have. The teachers at age 57 with 20 years of service would have medical and dental insurance provided up to $14,500 a year towards the medical and dental for 3 years. Obviously, if it's more expensive than that, the difference comes out of their pocket. Okay? The support personnel, 88% of single or family premium towards the retiree's medical and dental, and then reduces to the Medicare carve-out rate, and they get that for 3 years. Again, the difference would come out of their pocket. Then we have 3 administrators that have individually negotiated agreements where when they leave the district after 15 years of service, they don't have to retire, it's after 15 years of service, they would get a maximum of $10,000 a year for 7 years, and then obviously would reduce to the Medicare carve-out rate if they were that old. The last one, and I'm just going to go to the next slide, I've kind of circled it here, because the benefits up to this point have all been funded at retirement. But the district administrator benefit, and now there's a second administrator with this, what was negotiated is after 5 years of service, we put $20,000 into a health reimbursement arrangement. I refer to it as a post-employment health reimbursement arrangement. Are you familiar with what a health reimbursement arrangement is? So we put that money aside and it can be used for, in this case, a premium only. So when they leave the district, in all cases have to sever employment, okay? They can use those dollars to get reimbursed for medical premiums, medical or dental premiums. The difference between that and being on the health insurance plan for the district is that they can use it elsewhere. It doesn't preclude them from staying on your health insurance plan and using it. But it allows them to say, well, I could stay on this health insurance plan and I could use it in this manner. Or maybe my spouse is working and their cost is $200 a month taken out of their check through their employer, and we'll take family coverage. Now what I can do is through that health reimbursement arrangement, whatever the dollar amount I'm getting, I can make it last longer. I simply have my spouse's insurance taken after tax, okay? And I can use those dollars then to get reimbursed. That's the reimbursement portion of it, okay? It doesn't stop someone from saying, I'm going to take those dollars to use to stay on the district's health insurance plan, but there might be other options. I use an example of Home Depot because I used to live near a Home Depot and I swear all the retired shop teachers work there. I love them because they knew everything about everything. But nonetheless, if you have coverage through the school district and you're getting medical or dental insurance and you work at Home Depot and they offer the health insurance from Home Depot, you're gonna stay with the school district because they're paying for it. If you take Home Depot's, it's gonna cost you something out of your pocket. By having a health reimbursement arrangement, you can get the best of both worlds. You can make that money last longer. Why does the district care? Because it's the retirees that drive the cost of the health insurance. And so if there's another opportunity for them to have health insurance and it's outside of your health insurance plan, that flexibility is great for them and it allows you to control the costs for the active employees of your district. So we see a lot of school districts that have moved to a health reimbursement arrangement, and I refer to it as a post-employment health reimbursement arrangement because they can't get those monies to retirement. But in our last situation here, instead of waiting till someone leaves the district to fund the benefit, we have a responsibility when they get to 5 years of service, which we have an administrator that has, to put $20,000 into the HRA. And so at this point in time, we have to do something. That's the responsibility that we're talking about. And an additional $25,000 after 10 years, and an additional $30,000 after each subsequent 5 years. So that's the benefit there, and that's the reason why we have a responsibility to set up a trust, okay? And the purpose of the trust is it's irrevocable. I put those monies into it, it can only be used for that purpose. If we reserve fund balance and say, oh, we're just going to put the $20,000 aside, it's not good enough because you could use that for something else. It has to be irrevocable. And so at minimum, we need to set up that trust, that Fund 73, and put those monies in according to that agreement, okay? But then we need to create a post-employment health reimbursement plan, an HRA plan. We actually have to adopt a plan that says, hey, this is how it works, okay? And then have a board resolution adopting that plan. And then form a relationship with the third-party administrator to actually process those claims. So when that person leaves the district and says, well, I have these claims and it's from another individual health insurance plan or through a spouse or from Home Depot or whatever, somebody has to make sure that they're being reimbursed appropriately. Now, why that's important is with a health reimbursement plan, the money goes in tax-free to that plan, and the money comes out tax-free if it's for reimbursement of appropriate expenses. In this case, we're talking premium only, okay? We can't use it for other purposes because there is something in the IRS regulations with non-discrimination testing, and at this point, we couldn't pass that, okay? So that's what we want to do at this point. That's our responsibility, is to set up that trust, to set up an HRA plan, and to make sure that we have a claim administrator when we have our first retiree or our first former employee that would use that. Now, you could set up a trust with a local bank, and when you do that, There are other factors. You have to have a bank, you have to have a legal firm to approve the documentation and the paperwork, and you need an investment manager who's managing the funds in that account, okay? CISA 6 in Wisconsin, years ago, when we first started looking at these post-employment benefits, and particularly after Act 10, when a lot of benefits changed and people were saying we need to fund these, they said, let's create that package rather than having each school district trying to create their own thing. And so the CISA 6 has the OPEB trust, and I think it's misnamed the OPEB trust because it can be used for other things besides healthcare. But it's Wisconsin government employers, so there are some cities and counties as well as school districts that participate in this trust. But CISA packaged it so that your trust administrator is BMO Harris, and your investment manager is PMA, and your legal counsel is Lewis Law Offices. So they've got the package, you don't have to be running around saying, what do I need to do? The OPEB trust works very closely with the Department of Public Instruction, and I think that's really important because we want to make sure that the way things are being handled, everybody is in agreement, and before they do anything, they make sure it's blessed by the DPI so that we're all on the same page. So this is something that I had gotten from the OPEB trust for another client. We were looking at this. I had a school district who came to me and said, we're with a bank. We set up our own arrangement with a bank. And it was a local bank in Wisconsin, very reputable one. But they were being charged $300 a month to have their trust. And they said, that's too expensive. And they had like $5,000 in the trust. And it was like, that's a lot of money. So with the OPEB trust, I asked them in reference to looking at some options, what are your fees? And so, if you don't mind, is it okay if I, okay, I'm sorry. So I asked them your first quarter of 2022, let's get real, okay? If you had $20,000 in that trust, what our fees would be for the first quarter. $400 for facilitation fees, $4.25 for BMO Harris, $10.56 for PMA, for a total of $18.80. Okay, a quarter, okay, not a month, okay? So if you had $250,000, you'd still be less a quarter than the $300 a month. So it is very well managed. And the interesting thing about the OPEB trust is that it's the government entities that actually manage it. They have quarterly meetings. They review what they're getting for their services. They bid out the services a few times to say, we want better returns, we want better service, what can we do in the marketplace? We would have privy to all of that. Now, as part of this other review, I also asked them about their performances. With the OPEB trust, there's 4 different investment models that you would work with PMA on. Ultra-conservative, conservative growth, moderate growth, balanced growth. None of those numbers look pretty, okay? It's because of where we are right now. The reality is it doesn't look any prettier out there by anybody else, and if somebody's got something great to sell you, it's probably swampland in Florida, right? So the reality is, you know, obviously, you know, I didn't want to walk into that. So I asked for another client, can we just put it in cash until the markets change? Because why walk into it knowing you're going to lose money? And so that is an option for you. If you said, hey, we got to set it up, we've got to put $20,000 in, let's leave it in cash so we're not losing any money, but it's in the irrevocable account. But then let's look at and watch how the markets change and work with PMA to say when do we want to get into it and what do we want to do. You're giving me a funny face. Don't hesitate to ask a question. So is there something on your mind?
Other than a funny face.
I'm glad you said that.
Just another funny face. No, I just thought that kind of an option usually, I'm not familiar with
Okay.
being able to take it in and out like that.
Yes.
Based on market.
Oh, well, you know, putting it in at this point, and, you know, I'm looking at my own 401k saying, why would I want to invest everything as a loser? You know what I mean? And so just the option of saying, we're not going to put it into anything, we're just going to hold it in cash, and things are changing, okay?
So we actually, we actually then become monitors of that, or is it automatic with the investment firm? They automatically do that?
Well, they work with you on what investment model you want. It's not a free-for-all. It's showing you different investment models and what their returns on and that type of thing.
Follow up, so if we were to choose to put it into a cash setup, at some point in the future to transition from that to an investment program, that would be a decision by the school, and then to work with the group to make the transition.
Right. It would
And I
still
think
be-
that's what you were kind of talking, it just doesn't
It's
happen.
still in the OPEB trust.
Right.
But besides going into one of these investment models, you do have the option of cash and just saying, we're going to park it here and we're going to
No, I
watch.
think he was just saying that it wouldn't automatically roll, and at some point the school would have to work with this group
Yes.
and transition.
You make the decisions.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
But the
So-
money is still in the OPEB trust, it still
Yeah.
can only be used for
Right.
other post-employment benefits.
Right,
Carl would work with PMA.
Right.
right, absolutely. So that's what I wanted to make sure that you understood, and I thought that was a really nice slide they gave me, and I've used this numerous times now. So the district's administration, so now we are going to set up this OPEB trust and get that off the ground, and I believe that Carl has the paperwork for that and the resolution to do that. Then we want to look at if we could administer it ourselves. We could say, okay, this person gets $14,500 if they're a teacher for 3 years, and we'll keep our little spreadsheet and maintain reimbursements for those amounts. However, that is an administration issue for the school district, and it is something you could be subject to IRS audit and so forth. So we also looked at some third-party administrators, set up each account at retirement. They would keep track of the records and so forth and request payments for reimbursements. So when I looked at these, there are 2 HRA administrators, post-employment HRA administrators, that are very common in the state of Wisconsin and do a good job. Diversified Benefit Services is DBS, and Employee Benefit Cooperative or Corporation is the other one. Now, EBC, you do have a relationship where they work with COBRA, and I did talk with them thinking, hey, you already have a relationship, they do your COBRA administration. But when I started to walk through what it would be, we soon figured out that with the plan designs that we have, that their systems would be constantly saying, well, you have to keep telling them things and double checking numbers. The record keeping wasn't as great for the post-employment HRA. Their target market is the active HRA that you would have in combination with a high deductible medical plan. The other thing that EBC said is we could set up the plan document for you and it's $450, but at this point in time, we don't have anybody who would be on the plan, so why would we want to pay administrative fees for claims administration when we're not getting anything for it? So we would want to wait on claims administration until we had our first retiree that would use it, right? Well, they said we charge you $450 a year just for being there for you if you had any changes in your documents. So that was another part of it. So what I'm suggesting is that you look at Diversified Benefit Services. They're out of Heartland, Wisconsin. And their document fee is $500, and they would prepare that plan document for you and for the administration. And these fees are the 7/1/2022 rates for each of them. Now, I've worked with these claims administrators for years. They're going to increase their fees a little bit every year, but I have never seen them jack up a rate out of the blue, okay? So it gives you an idea of comparative. Because we're looking at $450 a month for participation for each retiree, they do have minimum fees. So if you're not going to have a lot of people on the plan, you are going to be paying the minimum fee per month. So looking at EDC, you're looking at about $1,300 a year, DBS versus EBC. So somewhere around $1,500 is what you're looking at for administration if you put that in, and regardless of whether you have 2 people or 10 people that are on the plan. Yes?
The $450 that's on there for the monthly admin fee per participant, do we get charged per participant for as long as they have money in the HRA?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So active people we're not dealing with. It's just when you have a retiree, it's $450 a month. If that retiree takes 25 years to use the claims, their reimbursements out of that account, you would be charged that $450, or if it increases a little bit. But we're looking also at a minimum fee. So It's going to be more than that if you're dealing with only 5 or 10 people. Yes?
So so the plan document fee from DBS, is that yearly?
It's a one-time.
And EBC is yearly?
EBC is yearly if you're not using their claims administration. So we don't need it right now. It could be a year, it could be 2 years, it could be 5 years before we have a claim. So are we going to pay $450 a year? And even at that, that wasn't as much of an issue to me as when I went to talk with them and I looked at the plan design and said, this is what we have. And their comment was, well, if that's the case, then we would have to keep coming back saying, well, how much did they get this year, or are we done, and having the school district do the double check on administration. So for the difference in cost for administration, DBS is going to keep those numbers. If, for example, I'm going to talk to you in a minute about looking at changing the teacher's benefit, instead of medical and dental, let's give them $14,500 a year for 3 years into an HRA. The flexibility is there, they could use it for other things. Other premiums. But if we did that, if you were with EBC, they'd know, John Doe retired, $14,500 a year for 3 years. Every year you'd have to go back and say, now add another $14,500 for John Doe, now add another $14,500 for John Doe. And then make sure that you tied up the administration. DBS will have it in their system. They have their system set up and they load it in. You tell us that it's a teacher, the teacher gets this benefit, they start from the date you tell them they retired, they'll give you an annual report that says this is what we paid out, this is the balance, they got another $14,500 the next year, and then when their 3 years are done, we stopped putting monies in, but this is their balance, and now they have the ability to draw down that balance till it's zero.
So they're automatically going to draw it out of the OPEB trust?
Yes. Now, when I did talk with them about that, they said they can pull it. If the OPEB trust allows you to pull it directly from the trust, that I'm not sure of, it might have to be, I have to put it into your bank account, but they'll pull it. The only thing that they can't pull is the invoice for their services. So the once a month, whatever your fee is, that they have to give you an invoice and you have to pay them. You can push it to them through the same account, but it's not something that they're allowed to take their own administration fees for. Okay? So that was part of the reasoning behind it. The other thing that we were talking about with setting up this HRA plan is if we're going to give a teacher $14,500 for 3 years, and after that, they're allowed to use it till it's gone. Now, one of the things that I've seen is that we've got some school districts that put in a post-employment HRA 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and they've got people with $3.95 sitting in their HRA account, and no one's using it, and it's 10, 15 years later, and so it's trying to keep track of that. So one of the things that we suggested here was that we put into the plan design that says, this benefit, the monies that you get in the account, are terminated the earlier of 3 different things that could happen. The first one being they exhausted the benefit. If I've used all my money, my plan is done, my benefit's terminated. Okay? The second one is I pass away and I have no dependents. Because under IRS regulations, this is tax-free going in, it's tax-free coming out, we can't give it to the estate. But if they have a spouse or a child who is eligible for reimbursement for premiums, once that retiree passes away, they can continue to use it. But if they don't, the monies are forfeited back to the school district.
So what would make a spouse or a child eligible for that?
Being a dependent, on taxes dependent. So it would be something where if it was the spouse of the retiree and they had coverage through the state plan or something else, and the retiree passed away and the spouse could continue to draw the premium reimbursements for their premium. Does that make sense?
This is really rich.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I said, this is really rich
Okay.
compared to probably what many of us are used to. So what happens if I retire as a teacher at 64 and I move into Medicare at 65? Do I still get help?
You would still have the monies put into your account, okay? And now you can use your Medicare Part B premium, okay, for reimbursement, or your Medicare gap coverage insurance for reimbursement, those types of things. Dental insurance, still, you know.
So how does it go longer than 3 years? Because you told me that So it says here, for a period of 3 years. So give me an example of money. And Medicare,
We put the money in for 3 years,
because the premiums for some of those things come out of your Social Security premium.
but you can get reimbursed.
They cut you money back.
Okay, this is a reimbursement
It's like a
account.
flex account.
Yes. Thank you. Very much like a flex account.
Huh?
We've had this for years. in our
I understand that, but I mean, for most of us that are outside of this world, seeing this for the first time is like, holy buckets.
This
It's a
is,
nice benefit.
Two issues. Previous people to this group in the education will have approved all this stuff.
Right.
So these are bills we have to pay, like it or not.
I understand
So
that.
this is the right thing to do. So
Why- I'm just saying,
But how long Wisconsin schools can afford to keep this up is we'll see what the future holds, right?
Well, and as Linda goes, you'll see things that Carl, her and I discussed to
yes.
change.
Okay. So,
okay.
But you have to
again,
be careful because age discrimination is age 40, correct? And so we address, so you'll see it.
okay, so basically, this is what our responsibility is for these two administrators. We have to set up this trust, we have to have the claims administrator. But now let's talk about the opportunity. And the opportunity is to consider the HRA for your other classifications, the other administrators, teachers, and support personnel. So what we're looking at is to say, this is what you have right now for the teachers. 14.5 for 3 years goes in, used towards continued health insurance premium, that's it, say goodbye, and they're out the door. The sick leave is converted at $100 a day up to 120 days. That can be used towards health insurance in that first year, and then we're done. So retiring prior to, and it should really be 6/30/2023 instead of 1/1. But then after that, what we're proposing is anyone who retires after 6/30/2023, that we would then go to the monies going into the HRA instead of just for the health insurance. That doesn't stop a retiree from staying on your health insurance plan and using the money, okay? But it gives them opportunities to do something different, okay? So it can be a little bit more lucrative to them because someone might say, well, I don't need it because I'm going to go on my spouse's plan and then I'm not on your plan and you don't pay out anything, okay? Whereas I'm going to put this money in, and if I put it in for 3 years, doesn't mean they have to spend it. It could sit there for a few years while they have coverage through a spouse or are doing something else, okay? But what we're trying to go to then is as long as they have those monies in there, they can use it towards your health insurance plan. But those who retire after 2034, so let's go forward 12 years, let's not rip the rug out from underneath people. Now what we're going to do is say, well, you have this HRA, and that's yours to use for reimbursement of premiums, but we're only going to offer you COBRA, which for most people is 18 months on our health insurance plan. Okay, because that's what's driving up our active health insurance costs is all these people staying on the plan. And one of the things that at first you go, well, wait a minute, what are these people going to do if they retire at 57 or 60 or whatever? 18 months isn't going to take them to 65, and that's true, okay? However, in January of 2019, the state Wisconsin health plan opened up and said, anyone who retires under WRS has a one-time opportunity to join the state health plan as a retiree, wherein they will take the monies from the WRS pension benefit to pay the premiums, and they can stay on indefinitely. And so it's an opportunity for them to say, well, I can take this money and go on the state health insurance plan, and I won't be forced to leave that plan. Now, the downside of that is, yeah, in some cases, it's going to be more expensive because all the retirees are allowed to stay on the plan, okay? Which is what we're trying to do here, is to say, hey, wait a minute, we want to be careful that we're not causing such a high rate for our active people that we can't afford the health insurance for the active employees. So that's also why we're not doing this for quite a number of years, but we're putting it out there, saying this, you know, if you're planning to retire, keep this in mind.
Because it wouldn't be fair for someone who's been here 15, 20 years looking forward to that benefit and all of a sudden change it on them. And 40 years old was the cutoff for age discrimination, so that's why I went with 2034. So it'll take us a dozen years to get there, but we'll get there.
Exactly, and we're not, we're letting people know right from the start. It's not something we're hiding and then saying, ta-da, we changed the rules on you.
Just take an opposite, I can't do anything about this, but contrary to what you just said, it's not fair. All of business and industry out there
Yeah.
in the last 10 years, 20 years, went from defined benefit plans to defined contribution plans, and nobody raised an issue that is that fair.
Yeah.
That's just the way it works.
Yeah.
So now now you have to manage your own pension plan, all right? So I don't know why this is any different. We're not going to be the test baby here to do it, but this can't go on forever.
Well, I think one factor that we have to look at is the teacher shortage. And there are not many in the pipeline right now. And there is going to be a teacher shortage nationwide.
That's true of accountants, that's true of nurses,
Well,
that's true of
yeah.
all those industries.
Well, everybody's short right now.
Everybody's short.
I
so-
know.
I think there's a teacher shortage, but the
trying to
young
find the
teacher
electrician.
coming out isn't looking at this. They're looking at
This is far from
where they
here.
are on
When you're
staff.
25 and you come out, you don't worry about health and you're bulletproof.
Yeah, that's
You can do anything you want when you're 25. Yeah, but at least they
Very few, I bet you if you surveyed every new teacher, not one of them took a teaching job because of something like that. The overall retirement, probably, but not the post-employment benefit thing.
Right. In fact, new employees used to
Because
say,
I would argue to young
I don't
people
want
that are
I don't want a pension plan, just give me the cash in my paycheck.
But this is in the employee handbook, which is later in the meeting, so you can change if you want to, but I can't recommend doing that.
I think, no.
Yeah.
Is there any schools that fit the bullet?
There have been schools that have changed this and said instead of it being a retirement benefit, and again, you want to do it in tiers. You don't want to do something to someone who
Right.
is 15 or
I
years
understand.
away from retirement that was
It's a matter of
planning on it.
justice.
Because you get to 40, 45 years old and you start looking at this, okay? But for the new people coming in, I've seen people that said anyone that is hired on or after 7/1 or 23 or whatever it might be, you're not going to get this benefit. This is a closed group. Now, we're going to set aside X amount per year for you with a vesting schedule. So if you stay for, and I always say don't vest before 5 years of service, because that's when you have your highest turnover, and if it's supposed to be a post-employment retirement benefit, you're encouraging people to leave. But you can put vesting schedules in there that says the longer you stay, the more you get. 10% a year from 5 to 15 years, after 15 years, you're 100% vested. Or 20% per year from 10 to 15, so the longer you stay, whatever it would take to entice people. And then you can change that benefit, because even if it's a smaller amount, okay, it's something you're setting aside with an encouragement to stay, that they can see that I'm going to get that. They can't see age 57 with 20 years of service. You're absolutely right. They'll look at you and say, why are you talking about that? I've got student loans and young children. I don't really care about what's going to happen when I'm 57. On the reverse side, if it's something where, like you said, I can see money in my hand, maybe not today, but 5 years, 8 years, 10 years from now. And then when they get to that point, it's like, oh, well, if I stay longer, I vested more. So that is something you could consider down the road. What we were looking at here with the support staff is, right now they're getting 88% of the contribution for single or family for up to 3 years. And when I was talking with Kyle and Carl about this, I said, well, how does that compare to the 14.5? I said, at what point is that going to be greater, the 88%, than what you're giving the teachers? And he said, it already is.
Right.
Yeah. So we need to get something where you're not giving more to the support staff than you are to the teachers. And so this is where we're saying if you retire after 7/1/2023, but before 2025, you get that benefit. And then if you retire after 7/1/2025, then you're going to go to the teacher benefit of the 14.5. Again, we're going to wait until 2034 to say now we've limited it to COBRA. So we're bringing that in line. We're going to an HRA, and then we're taking the next step.
Kyle, in this industry, what's the history of not treating everybody the same? Having teachers involved and support staff, as opposed to there's all employees.
But here's how it happened here at Sevastopol. You had 3 contracts back before Act 10. You had the teacher contract, you had support staff, and you had bus drivers. And then when I went to handbook, they combined them and through negotiations, the support staff had 88% and the teachers went with the 14.5. So it was 2 different nights of negotiating over years that became those agreements. That was the handbook, that was 2011. No, 2010. Act 10 was 2011, so the handbook came together, and I'm pretty sure they took those 3 contracts and combined them into one document. I don't-
Well, there's a
you guys
history
work
to
that
it,
time?
because teachers,
I would
certified
agree.
teachers are always professional staff and aides would not. And my mom was a teacher and then an aide for a lot of years, and, you know, she was never allowed in the teachers' union when she was an aide, even though she had previously been a teacher, but that was at Sturgeon Bay. So there's a long, interesting history of education and where all this stuff has been globbed
The
together.
teachers and the custodians should have talked in the lounge about, hey, what are you getting, what are you getting? Talk to each other and gone for the better.
What-
They weren't allowed in the teacher's lounge.
One clarification for me on what you said, about when teachers retire under the WRS, they have a one-time decision that they can go on to that program and get health care.
Right, when they first say, I'm applying for my WRS pension, and they annuitize, that's when they have the option of joining the state health plan. Now, the state health plan offers different health plans in different regions of the state, but they can come in as a retiree. And once they come in, they can stay there indefinitely as long as they're in a geographic area. And if they move from one to another, they would have then the opportunity to choose a different one.
For strategic discussion, not for today, is if we're paying reduced post-employment benefit, that's an additional budget in our school, so then you can pay younger teachers more money to get them hired, right? That's why we're not getting them. And we're not saying they're not getting any benefits anymore, because they can go to the WRS and get insurance. We're not doing that, but I'm just saying those are long-term discussions that could benefit if we can't get people here. That's how you can shift money from this post-employment for all these people, but I think it's a small number right now.
Well, Sue, you and Dick, when you retired, that's a big decision, not just to retire, but you have like 7 boxes. You got to pick one of the 7 boxes, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And you have several options.
Yeah, and that's huge. That's a huge.
It's a huge decision to retire for anybody. Everyone I work with has to do the equation and the math, and when am I getting insurance? I got a lot of guys that aren't retiring yet, because they don't, until they get to insurance.
Except we just don't,
So,
they
yeah,
have
just-
quite
that's
as
what
many
everyone else
options.
So everyone makes those big decisions, you know?
Right. But that's what I'm saying is when you do the WRS form, you check the box and you got to live with it for life then.
Yeah.
There's no changing after you
Yeah.
do it, yeah.
And I think also the Affordable Care Act comes into play somewhat, because a lot of the insurance plans that the state offers are much more expensive than what you could get under the Affordable Care Act. So that benefit isn't exactly,
Right.
attractive.
Now, here's the other side of that. If they wanted to go to the exchange, the marketplace, and buy an insurance plan in the marketplace, they can use the HRA for reimbursement, except if they're going to get a subsidy. If they're going to get a subsidy from the state, okay, they have to waive the HRA benefit. Now, based upon what their benefits are with WRS, I doubt they're at, 400% of poverty or below that they're going to get a subsidy. But if someone were, they obviously were going to get a better benefit. They suspend this, okay?
Suspend.
Well, they waive it, but waiving is just basically I waive it until I'm no longer eligible for the subsidy and then I can use my money. Okay, it's not a permanent waiver, okay? It's just that they're not allowed to use this to get a subsidized benefit, okay?
So then it just, they stay on the marketplace of Obamacare for 5 years, ride that out, then they go on Medicare, then they can start tapping into the
Right.
30,000.
Then they could use that for their Part B premiums or their Part D prescription drugs or, yeah,
Wow,
okay.
that's awesome.
So it's flexible, okay? But we have to be careful of what the rules are in doing this with the IRS, okay? So that's what is an opportunity, okay, with the support staff. Then the 3 individual negotiated administrators that are getting the $10,000 for 7 years, we're looking at that saying as of 6/30/2023 and beyond, we would put that in the premium-only HRA, and again, they would be just offered the COBRA. Now, remember too, it's upon severance of employment. So after 15 years of service, they don't have to retire. The administrators don't have to retire. The other 2 groups actually have to retire under WRS. But again, it's giving that flexibility.
Could you
So-
could you repeat that again about requiring retirement?
Let me go back to, here we go, okay. Teachers retire at age 57 with 20 years of service. Support staff 62 with 20 years of service. They're eligible for WRS, they must be drawing their WRS pension. I'm not, quote, retiring as a teacher from Sevastopol so I can go work for Sturgeon Bay, okay? They actually are supposed to be pulling their WRS pension. Whereas an administrator who has 15 years of service could leave here and be 52. And I'm going to go be a principal at another school district, but they would then get that benefit, okay? And this is very common with the administrators. It's not tied to retirement, but it is something to encourage them to stay longer because we do see a lot more movement in the administrators. And if you think there's a teacher shortage, it gets even worse when it comes to some of the administration in key roles. So that's the difference there. Okay. So our intention is really not to change the benefit, just the way we're administering it, to give more flexibility to eventually move away from them staying on the health insurance plan for very long, which a lot of districts have done. Okay. And again, it's just really, it's going beyond what we need to do for the one administrator group, saying this is an opportunity to consider this for the other groups, and here's what the proposed language would look like if we made those changes. Okay? And then, of course, nothing changes here with our other two administrators because that's already in place and would function that way. Now, this would be a premium-only HRA for everyone. Otherwise, we would have a problem with non-discrimination testing. Okay. So, our goals here, what we were looking at, is to restructure the benefit and the funding by establishing the trust, the OPEB trust, creating a post-employment HRA plan, okay, arrange the post-employment HRA claims administrator, and then fund the district administrator benefit per the agreement, which is where we're at right now. That's what our goal is, and consider the HRA benefit for the other retirees. Make sense? So, what would we need from the board? What would the response be? First thing would be the OPEB trust agreements. We need to have those approved and the resolution to adopt the trust. Those documents are ready for signature. The second one would be to implement that post-employment HRA plan. We must establish that plan document and the resolution to adopt. Those documents are being developed right now. Okay? And then lastly, to look at considering an action to transition the HRA plan for teacher support staff and other administrators. Make sense? And I think you had a number of action items, Carol, that you were saying you wanted to move up.
First, does anybody have additional questions? Or
I have one more, or a question. That's okay. The money that's put in, like the 14,000 per year, does the interest bear any value impact on that? Or they get 14, so times 3, whatever the math is, right now, 42. They get 42 period, regardless of if the interest goes up or
Let me explain this. When we say we're going to put it in their account, okay, it literally stays in the OPEB trust with the district's name on it.
Yeah, I know.
Until that administrator says, John Doe sent in a claim for $1,000, I need to pull $1,000 from your trust. So we might earmark in the trust 14.5 times 3 for a teacher, okay? But as long as it sits in that trust, the interest on it belongs to the district and to the trust.
Yeah, that's what I was at. Perfect answer.
We're also paying the administration, okay?
Yeah.
So-
Oh, we're paying the administrator. No,
So-
right.
So
And so if it goes down, we deal with some decreased interest and some lost money, years like this, and then no,
Yes.
that's fine, I was just curious.
Yes,
So that 14.5 won't become 17.80, 17, okay. thank you.
Exactly,
Wonderful.
exactly. No different than what we have here. We're not increasing the dollar amounts, we're not making any promises beyond that. What we would say in the plan document is any interest that is earned on that would be used to offset the expenses or future payments.
And the money we put into that is as we have these commitments from our employees, we can or should put that money in there. That's why we're doing this, right? So then it's there and it's protected, because I absolutely agree. agreements we have with our staff need to be maintained, right? Because I don't want to be the one school Kyle talked about that just goes belly up and then these people don't get the benefit that they worked for so long.
When we do an actuarial valuation and you have a trust, okay, first of all, in the valuation, we show what is anticipated, it's estimates, of the expected pay as you go. The rates at which, using WRS rates of retirement, the rates at which we expect people to retire, and the rates at which we expect you to pay out these benefits. In addition to that, we also give you, when you have a trust, an actuarially determined contribution, an ADC table, that says how fast you want to fund this or at what rate do you want to fund this to be appropriately funding that. Those are two instruments that the district can use to say, how much should we be funding this? We don't have to lump it all in there,
Right.
but and we'll earn the interest on it as we do, but something that we stay ahead of the game so that we have
If you have
the
a good
funds
year
to
in your
draw.
budget, maybe put a little more in,
Absolutely.
being smart with it. And then if all of a sudden you have a really tight year because our gas prices triple for a whole year, then maybe that year we don't put in as much, right? That's the
Exactly.
flexibility if you're ahead of it, stay ahead.
Exactly, and that way too, if you have, and this usually happens with the districts, and I didn't bring that, but you have like this, okay, all of a sudden we have a whole bunch of people retiring. Well, and I've had a number of districts that come and said, in about 5 years, we're not gonna be able to afford this anymore, so let's get the trust in now and let's start putting a little bit more in so we even out those years.
Right.
So that's exactly what you're trying to do,
Right,
is
very
stay
good.
ahead of it.
We know in spring of '24, we have 4 teachers retiring.
Mhm.
Times that times
Yeah,
14.5
no,
times 3 years, and we gotta get going now.
You had mentioned that the money stays out there indefinitely, or the 3 things that would cause it.
You never got to one, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
only heard 2 of the 3.
Yeah.
My
Okay.
question is, can we put something, you had mentioned something like
Yes.
$3 or something? I mean, I would think after, I mean, I have flex benefit through my employer, and if I don't use it at X amount of time, it goes back to the company.
Right,
I mean,
The
is there a
third-
way to put some
yeah, that was one of the reasons why.
verbiage in there, like, hey, after 6 years? Because if we're paying forfeit, I mean, administratively to pay, like, I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me. So
Well, here's what we want to do, okay, and Diversified will do this for you, with EBC you would have had to do it yourself. And that is, they send out an annual statement that says, you have X in the account, you spent Y, the remaining balance is Z, okay? Along with that, they will send out a notice that says, if you haven't had any activity in this account, or you've changed your address, you need to notify us that you are aware of this balance and you intend to use it. If they go for 3 years with no activity and no response, that's the third way you lose your benefit. The goal is really not to say, oh yeah, you didn't use it for a year, we're taking it away from you.
No, I'm not suggesting
But
that.
we don't want to be chasing after the 92-year-old that's sitting there with $3.50.
And that's on us to keep administrating that.
Exactly. So,
So that's the third.
that's the third one. So either it's until exhaustion, or until death with no dependents to use the dollars remaining, or 3 years with no activity and no response. Okay? So again, we're not trying to take it away,
So when the
but you know,
spouse, and you said it is not a asset, so to speak, so if there's $20,000 left in it, the husband dies, the wife dies a year later, $19,000, that comes back to us, it doesn't.
Well, it's 19,000 is never going to be spent.
right,
I'm just saying,
Right.
that is the
We're
fund
saying-
balance.
Right.
right.
The retiree dies, it goes to the surviving spouse, the spouse dies another year later, and there's still
Still $10,000
funding
in
in
there.
there, that funding comes back to the district.
No, yeah, the funding though stays in Fund 73, so it has to pay for
Well,
something
Well,
else.
it's
Right.
available
But it goes
to
into
the
that
fund.
fund.
Right, exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
it never left the fund.
It's never going to
I
be
think
the
that's what
fund.
they're saying, is that it's not, you have to get it back, it never left the fund, it's still in
Well, you
the
know,
trust.
No, it's out of the little spreadsheet
We're
that
talking
says,
the
Bob,
same-
Bob, Jim,
Exactly.
everybody.
It's no longer
It's
an
not an
obligation.
available pool to be allocated within that,
That
which
10
then we could reduce a payment on that year because of, hey, that just happened and now we could reduce our payment. back.
Absolutely.
That $10,000 is not going to be spent on this person. It can be
I just-
spent
yes.
someone else,
Absolutely,
right?
right. And you're in control of that money until it's actually eligible for reimbursement.
Right.
Okay.
So does anybody, who does the actuarial work, looking at the teacher population, there must be algorithms out there that if you've got 13 teachers at age 45 now, X number of them are going to stay around long enough to do this, so you know that you're funding it properly.
We are doing that right now for the district, and we have been for years.
So that you do.
Yeah, you do not have a trust, but we still go through that using the WRS rates of turnover and rates of retirement.
See, the whole bunch of come at one time, they stay, and it's just stay forever, you're going to could get burned, I think.
Jerry,
Have we been briefed on that? Have you briefed the school board in the last 6 years? You
I know
provide a
we
report.
walked through the report with the district, but I don't know that I've actually come and presented to your board,
The
or
actual
even
report.
virtually. I'm happy to do that.
Do
do
we,
all the
I
time.
don't, do we get, at least I don't remember being briefed.
Well, it's all part of, we have to have the actual report for our
The
yearly
audit.
audit.
Yep, it is in the audit.
When
So-
Shanker,
Yeah.
they
It was.
So if there's issues there with the auditors.
This is the thing to get more people hired, educate them on the benefits this place has. That's where I realized that years ago, because I have a lot of teacher friends that are old like me. So if you want to get young teachers in, you brief them just like young military people. Every young military person, I'm going to go out and make 3 times as much outside. Sure you will, for a few
And that'll
years.
be discussion for another
Yeah,
day.
yeah, sorry.
Well, at
I mean,
our
that-
first
that-
service, all this, Carl will cover this at our in-service
Sorry,
day if it's
keep
approved. That's how we inform
My
our staff.
last question, just so I'm interpreting this.
Sure.
So if I'm a 61-year-old teacher and I retire under the top part, and I've got 120 days in my sick bank, does that mean these benefits, so I can use my first 120 days at 112,000 to pay for my insurance plan, and then I can go, or I can use that either at the beginning or the end, so that really I'm getting a 4-year bridge from my employment to Medicare?
Now, here's the thing. The money with the sick leave, that's earned, okay? That's not a district benefit, okay? That's compensation, okay? And again, this is the legal issue with it. So,
Because they're entitled to a
They're
certain number
entitled
of
to
sick
it.
days.
Right,
Yeah,
I mean,
if they
you're right,
don't
but-
take them,
so it's,
they can accrue them.
we can't say, oh, we'll pay it out to you over 3 years. The sick leave is available year 1. So you get your 14.5, but you also get those sick leave available year 1.
That's
Okay.
taxable.
I'm sorry?
That's
The
taxable.
sick day is compensated.
No, if it goes through the HRA, it still goes in tax-free and comes out tax-free.
That benefit does.
Yes.
Really?
But the sick leave, we can't divide that over years and say, well, we'll pay it over 3 years, or, oh, you're not entitled to this. You
So
get
the
that
first year
benefit.
they get
Yes.
2 amounts.
Yep, so you're absolutely right. They would get the 2 amounts. They would get that all up front. Okay?
Teacher salaries aren't as high as other fields, but they have benefits like this that
Or you
you
used to
can't explain to 25-year-olds, but yeah. And we sat here about how long we were this, right?
Huh?
I can debate that with you, Jerry, for hours.
Well, I have a ride and I don't want it to be every time I leave. No offense, but I
Thank you
wanted to
very
make
much.
sure it was.
No, your briefing is very good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Are we good
We're
here?
good. I'm done.
Thank you.
I will look for a motion then to move under old business, item B, and under new business, item E, forward on the agenda to this point.
I move to move the old business.
Old business, item B.
Old business item B to this point on the agenda.
And also item E under new business.
Item E under new business.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then Mr. Volkman has prepared this sheet with draft motions. There are 3 of them. Here, Dave. So these, we'll take them one at a time. But this is-
Move to create a Fund 73 trust. Wait, hold on, down here. Spell out. Move that the Board of Education create a Fund 73 trust, authorize the adoption of the Wisconsin OPEB Trust and Custody Agreement, appoint BMO Harris Bank N.A. as trustee and custodian, and authorize the superintendent or his or her designee to carry out all related obligations.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Second motion?
A motion to move that the Board of Education authorize the adoption of the investment advisory agreement, appoint PMA Financial Network as the investment advisor for the district's Fund 73 Employee Benefit Trust, and authorize the superintendent or his or her designee to carry out all related obligations.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Third motion.
I would move to authorize the superintendent and his or her designee to create a post-employment health reimbursement arrangement through Diversified Benefit Services, Inc., and make changes to the employee handbook accordingly.
I'll second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then we have Mr. Bill Foster here from School Perceptions to give us a presentation on some recent things.
He is here. You probably remember Bill from when the CPAC committee went out and their firm handled that. And obviously helped.
Yeah, so the last time I was here, this part of the building wasn't here.
Right.
We're talking about building this part, so I'm excited to be here. It's beautiful, by the way. It was, and by the way, based on my work right now with other districts, you're really lucky you got this done when you did, because it's becoming more and more difficult. So tonight we're going to talk about the staff survey, the senior exit survey, and the postgraduate survey that we do with you. So what I do is I put together an executive summary, which is still 82 slides. I don't know if I succeeded as a summary, but I'm going to go through it fairly quickly so you can kind of make sense of it. Okay, you may have go back here.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, wait one. Hey, break it.
Can you tap the screen too?
There you go. Okay.
Can you tap the screen?
I can do this one too. Okay. All right, so again, School Perceptions, we've been around since 2002. We started the company to provide educational leaders like yourself the data needed to make strategic decisions. We've worked in all 50 states. We are Wisconsin-based, but we've done over 10,000 staff, student, parent surveys, and actually we're up over 900 community surveys now. So we're going to start out with the staff survey. It was done in May. You had 79 responses. It gave us a response rate of 66%, which is a little bit lower than normal. Usually we're up around 75%. We had representation from all your schools. And by the way, we can disaggregate the data on any demographic, of course, but this is going to be a high-level presentation tonight. About half of our sample were teachers, and we had some 19% were aides, 12% were other ed specialists, administrators, and then the smallest group was our other support, which included custodial maintenance and whatnot. Interesting, we're kind of spread out. We've got some folks who've been here more than 10 years in our world. We kind of have pre-Act 10, post-Act 10, which is exactly the discussion we had. You know, the folks who have been here longer, there was a different deal when they signed up. Folks who have been here shorter, I'm sure less than 10 years, things have changed. And expectations change. So district-wide, let me just kind of go through this one in a little more detail. The first thing is obviously the statement. Our district is committed to making needed improvements as they are identified. We have the 20% we either strongly agreed or agreed to that statement. So in this case, it's 75%. We have an average. The average is calculated based on if everybody would say strongly agreed to be a 5, agreed was 4. We do not have a neutral in the survey, so we force a leaning. You kind of have to lean to agree, lean to disagree. And if everybody would have strongly disagreed, it would be a 1. So when the report we put in your average in 2022, then your average in 2021, and then we did do the survey back in 2017, so we put that on as well. And you can see the changes. So I guess the first thing I want to say in general tonight, I think there are only 2 districts that we've worked with this year who actually have gotten better than last year. Everybody else, which are hundreds, have gotten worse. This was a very difficult year for staff, not only across Wisconsin, across the country. So when you're going to see a drop and maybe it doesn't surprise you, but in your data, again, there's only 2 districts where I've seen a very, very slight increase, and then you can see your data in 2017. The next question that usually comes up is what is significant, at what point should we worry? And the answer is around 0.2. So when you see a shift of more than 0.2, it starts to raise a little bit of a flag. So you can start to say, okay. So you have some shifts where it's dropped, but again, across the state, it's dropped. So this is our change readiness section. And I don't know, some folks will look at the percent agreed just to kind of get a high level view, then you can go over and look at the data. To provide a maximum quality education for all students, please check a maximum of 5. Again, this is staff. So we have better prepared students for life after high school. That's kind of number 1. Interesting, when we ask the parents, that's their number 1 too. I used to joke and say, that's because you don't want your 25-year-old living in your basement. And then my 25-year-old moved into my basement, and it wasn't so funny anymore. He moved out, so it's all good, but provide additional intervention support for struggling students. And you're going to see some data that shows that is a major concern between helping students who are struggle as well as student discipline. Those are the big 2 this year, not only in your district, but across the state. Additional counseling, psychologists, social work, kind of the same theme. Innovative programs to improve student learning and increase the number of hands-on learning projects. So that's data from the staff in terms of priorities. Student achievement, you really have very high scores. These are questions that the teachers responded to. If I was the custodial staff, I wouldn't have seen these in the survey, but you can see your percentages are very high and your averages are very high. Second slide. Here's what I was mentioning. The social and emotional needs of our students are being met. That dropped from a 3.5 to a 3.13. And then our student discipline is handled in a consistent manner. Only a third of our staff either agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. That is a challenge. Again, across the state, major challenge. Engagement, very high numbers. And the second slide, still pretty good numbers. Down here, it would take me a lot to lead the district at 71%. But you can see in 2021, we were at 4.17, now we're at 3.61. So it's challenging, it really is. And people are thinking, we had the great resignations nationwide, but it's happening in education as well. Communication, here you're pretty good, but had a slight drop, kind of in all these areas. Good understanding of the goal, 69%, feel comfortable sharing ideas and opinions, 64%, so it dropped. And then how would you rate communication from, there is another...
I think he went down the first thing.
You got a rock star working here. We're going to validate that shortly again, but technology services is really good. And by the way, the computer works perfect. Thank you. Gold star. And then a little bit lower, and by the way, district administration, school board, that's where the most communication is expected. So there's kind of a higher bar, and you did drop a bit. And the other thing that is true, there's not a school board in the state that hasn't dealt with difficult decisions this past year, so you couldn't hardly make a decision where half the group was happy, half was unhappy. So culture, generally pretty good. 93% of my coworkers are willing to help me. And then towards the bottom, I have adequate opportunities to participate in decisions that affect me. That dropped. So again, kind of a common theme you're going to see. Everybody's lower. Then we look at academic expectations. When we look at this slide, we really want to make sure that our two lows are balanced with two highs. And from a staff perspective, we also ask this question in our parent survey. But I'd say you're about right. You know, you're not too rigorous, you're not too easy, but you're just right. We have a A couple questions around the topic of equity. All students in our school are given equitable opportunities to learn and experience success, 81%. And all students are, in our school are treated with respect, 64%. There's a little drop there, but it's kind of that consistent drop that we see across the board. And then on the bottom of this list, all students in our school are treated fairly when disciplined. Again, that kind of correlates back to this discipline issue. So it's not only a challenge with discipline, but how kids are treated. Work environment, really good, 99%. Oh, this is the technology again. Yeah. These are outstanding numbers. So satisfied with technology support, available to me, and have the material needed to do my job. This is still work environment, still really positive. People feel safe, they have the flexibility. They feel valued because the community, I think, supported this investment in this facility. And we go to health and wellness. I engage in healthy nutritional practices. So kind of just a little bit of a drop. Here we actually, I get enough sleep. Sleep improved by 0.03, so there was one gain. Work-life balance dropped, stress increased, and district's wellness committee effective. Do we have a district wellness committee?
Yep. We just started up when you guys meet, Joe.
All right.
The new numbers on it.
All right. I mean, you can see that was back in 2017, same number, basically. Development and recognition, we're pretty much on par with many other districts. Satisfied with benefits, we just had that discussion, it's interesting. And this is some of the data you can go in and look at, and I think someone mentioned doing a survey of new employees. It's absolutely true. Really, new employees only care about pay. As you age, at that 45 mark, then it starts to matter. Competitive with similar jobs, 73% said agree, and pay practices are administered consistently at 69%. Satisfied with pay? You know, a year ago we were at 3.97, now we're at 3.48. I suspect it's the same pay, pretty much. But it's an easy thing to quantify. If I don't like my job as much, pay becomes more of an issue, right? I need to get paid more to be happy, and if we did that, we wouldn't be happier. But
So we went with a 3.2% raise rather than 4.7, and when our neighbors jumped way up high up north, yeah, they went 50,000 for starting pay up in Gibraltar.
that'll do it.
Yeah, so, but we did not lose any teachers up to Gibraltar this summer.
Building leadership, trust and building leadership is 78%. So this is all, it's pretty average, but it has dropped, kind of across the board. Department leadership must be a new section we must have just created. Didn't remember that. But.
No, I think we didn't have enough respondents in the past.
Okay. Just based on the numbers, I suspect I think it branched, and I don't think there are very many people that took that. Maybe that's what it was. And then district administration, we did see a drop, and as well as with the school board, kind of a similar drop. Overall satisfaction, our community supports education at 91%. Good numbers, and down here, kind of consistent data. We haven't, 60. We used to be at 3.79. We dropped to 3.31 in terms of improving this past year. Again, it's been a tough year. Please check up to 4 of your most important job satisfaction. Good leadership, number 1. Compensation, number 2. Healthy culture, work conditions. 3, and by the way, I think you have them here, generally based on the data, benefits, kind of drop down, and there's a cluster of another 3 items that are kind of in that 30% dial, then it drops down again. What grade would you give us? So if your glass is half full, you can say 75% of our folks give us an A or a B, and 19%, actually 21% give us a C, D, or F. And compared to neighboring districts, the perception is that you're still pretty much better or better. So we've got 10% that said worse and much worse. So let me just pause
By
there.
one person.
Ready?
At 3%, that's by one person.
Yeah,
How many people?
677 folks took it.
So I guess, with the low response percentage, 47%,
So it was 67.
okay, that's overall.
Two-thirds of the
We have
staff.
about 115 staff members.
Okay, so in actual teachers, you had what, 47% it was?
47% of the 77.
Yeah, okay.
So that would be.
I guess I'd be interested, maybe in a question in the future, is why would you not want to participate in this survey, which may bring out some other issues that exist?
Yeah, a couple of reasons. One is most people, as you get close, I said to another board on Monday night, teachers are like kids. As the weather warms up and you start to see the end of the finish line at June, you might not take the survey where you might take it if it was a little earlier in the school year. So I think this was done in May, if I recall.
Yeah, I was able to, yeah. We sent out multiple reminders to all of the staff.
The other thing that you could do, what some districts will do, is tie this into an in-service day and then actually provide time. At the last half an hour, you give it time so people can actually do it. And that actually works. It does.
Well, it depends on how much value the teacher puts.
And that's another good point. There's a district we work with in actually the greater Madison area. And they do a really good job, and they've been doing it for 10 years, and they've seen increases every year. They do a really good job tying it into, we ask, we listen, and based on your feedback, we're going to make 1, 2, or 3 changes. And then the staff actually realizes this is our vehicle to have a voice, and they are going to listen to it. If there's no feedback back to them, then they kind of go, I take it every year, nothing happens. So then I might not take it.
Where I work, we use food. If we was a competition between all the hospitals in the system, and the hospital would score the highest participation rate, got a free pizza party for the entire organization put on by the, so you can take that and make that as a goal. Here, we're going to get a free lunch or free this or free that, food-wise, to all the faculty. If our participation rate goes up 10% or 15% or 20%, and it does react because people go after each other. Did you take the survey yet? Because I want my pizza party.
It does work, especially when you have.
Pretty shallow, eh? Huh? Kind of shallow.
Well, you got them to participate.
That is common incentive structure. What do you think is the incentive structure that works?
Okay, no, sir.
But actually works within schools, and here you're a little bit more challenged. If you had separate buildings, then you can, but you do have an elementary, middle, and high school level that you could run a pizza contest.
I mean, all you want is information on how do you get it out.
Yeah. Any other questions on the staff? We're going to move over to the students.
It's participation, they don't have
So this is the senior exit survey. The other nice thing about seniors is you still control them. You got to do this. So this survey went out in May. We had 42 responses. I don't know how many graduates.
44.
44. So two of them snuck
They
away.
need time in the school day for them to take.
How many years have you attended the district? 5 to 12. So we had a few folks that maybe transferred in from a private school or from another district. About how many hours a week do you do homework? Well, 1 out of 5 do none. Including some. 1 to 5 hours, 33. So probably better than 2/3 spent between 1 and 10 hours a week. A typical work week during the school year, how many hours did you work for pay? It's pretty spread out. 21% don't work, and then you've got another 21% that are working more than 24 hours a week, which is quite a bit. Decent report cards, you got pretty high performers. Enrollment type, is 23% of your folks open enrollment? And then my future, so how helpful were each of the following people in deciding what to do after high school? You could be very helpful, someone or not. So again, simple average calculated on 321. So the highest you could be would be a 3. So friends, school teachers, parent guardians, other relatives, employers, college recruiters, all the way down the lowest was military recruiter. And then you can see we did calculate a change. So basically everybody was more involved pretty much across the board with trying to help the students, which is good. What do you want to do after graduation? Half are going to go to four-year college and another quarter are going to go to trade school, and then we've got some cats and dogs after that. Highest degree, 30% are going to get a bachelor's, 30% are going to go an associate trade, and then 2/3 will get a master's degree, and 8% are going to get a PhD. This is kind of impressive. 78% of your seniors had visited a college. 73% the college is valued by their family.
Well, they took a class trip to NWTC, so.
Oh,
That's a class trip to it.
Okay. And has anyone in your immediate family, parents, or something graduated? So 76%. So I think that there's some research and strong correlation there. Career planning. So there's a thing called career clusters, and these are the kind of, I think there are 13 of them that kids can go into. In terms of your students, they can be extremely interested, to be a 4 down to not interested. So number 1 was the STEM field. Number 2 was business. And actually all these are pretty tightly clustered with kind of the sales and marketing, architectural construction, after seeing the new school built. Ag, education and training at 19%. And the lowest was manufacturing. And when I looked at it earlier tonight, hospitality and tourism, actually, when we look at the actual graduates, a lot of them are working in that. So we're not planning on it, but it might end up there.
And the green is just indicating that was a significant change.
Yeah, that was a significant change since the 2021, but these are pretty small numbers. So it's not really telling us a whole lot, but you can see where the gains were. And it might be, pretty small. A couple of kids moved up, and that'll move it.
How many responded to this? What was it?
42.
Almost all of them.
42 out of 44. I know what I want to do for a career job when I'm an adult. Absolutely sure 34, pretty sure 51. No clue, 2%.
This one's right there.
It's one kid. Probably knew who it was. Personal reflection. So again, same format. You can do always, usually, sometimes, never. Have good relationships with adults. These are all really high. And you can see the change since 2001. Actually, interesting enough, when you look at this, from a student perspective, the year was better. From a staff perspective, it was much worse.
Well, this is seniors. This senior class was
This
a very
class of
good
22.
class. I mean, right, each class is different.
Yeah.
This senior class was really tight. They did well, all right. I mean, they had their issues, but I mean, on an average,
The other thing, they were coming out of COVID.
I was gonna say, what they just went through for 2 years, this year was great.
This beat the heck out of glad to be back here.
Right? I'm sorry, yeah.
We got to play sports all year.
But good, let's celebrate where we can. And really good, there's some significant gains compared to the 2021 class. So this is not a core group, this would be the class of 21 versus class of 22.
We'll go back a slide. The ones that are in green, I feel stressed, I know how to cope. That's really good skill to have. I know how to resolve conflict in a healthy way. We're always worried about mental health, and here's 2 really great signs for us.
Yeah, that's gains. My school, again, gains. There's one or more adult in my school who care about my future. I was at 9%, and this guy went up. There was at least one adult in my school that I could talk to. So I think the staff, although they were stressed, they were making connections with the students. How well do you feel your school has prepared you in the following: great, good, fair, poor? The one thing I would say is not all of these, for instance with math, every kid takes math. Not all kids take music, art, or A. So you kind of have to factor that in. But really really gains, actually A was up 19%. My learning, all gains. Biggest gain being I feel comfortable reading out aloud in classes, and I felt comfortable speaking and presenting in class. During high school, I had the opportunity to 89% work hard as a team, be creative, both were at 89. Pick school project activities that interest me, 82. Be a leader, volunteer at 64, and volunteer in the community. I think those are pretty, I think this is unique to your district. I don't see this too often. I've explored careers, jobs that may interest me after high school.
You meant the numbers are so high.
Yeah, they're positive, yeah. And then how well do you feel your school has prepared you in the following areas? Analyzing problems jumped 20% over the last year. Again, gains, pretty significant gains across the board. And actually, there's one that went down. Again, this is unique too. You guys must have created this 4 years ago, I think. Remember that far back. Actually, there's one. Just slight drop. All right, this one's backwards. So you have to think backwards now. So did any of the following interfere with your high school education? So this is a lot would be 4. So this is like golf. Higher score is bad, lower score is better. So you want them to be not at all. So if they went down, that's good. So when I looked at this again, well, we probably should have done it the other way in terms of, it's in fact, it did go down, but down is bad. I think the one that was interesting to me was disruptive behavior by others in class. That actually got worse, and it's the same thing we saw from the staff saying it was a bigger issue this year. So really, these are not real high numbers. The averages are, 1 is not at all. So these are not a big deal. Overall, I'm satisfied with the education I receive. So we put in the 2021 numbers. So you can see net, where we're at 88% in 2021. Now we're at 86%. Shifted a little bit more towards the green, you can kind of see. And then so let me pause there. That's the senior exit data. Any questions on that? Yes, sir.
General question. So all your surveys come from schools, you said, educational schools and stuff?
Yeah, with a name like School Perceptions, it's hard not to do anything else.
My follow-on to that is, do you guys look at, is there data available that you could compare? Because, I think my belief, and we would probably agree that all of the U.S. has a higher stress, because of everything going on in the last 2-3 years.
Yeah.
So, I would be very curious if that data existed to say, I think it does if you just pay attention to what's around you. All of the world is a little more stressed and a little more ornery and a little pissed off with the next person for whatever reason.
Right.
So that factors into all your decisions, which would factor into this.
Yes.
Right? And that's probably how you tried to kick it off by saying all the schools have gone down, except 2, I guess. But,
Yeah, the other thing that I would say, and I don't know, this is always challenging, what we did during COVID, our company, was we actually had a guy join us who's a PhD researcher from Madison, and we spent 6 months going through all the most recent research in education, and we went out and wrote 23 base surveys that are staff, student, and parent surveys. They're shorter than yours, and many districts are moving towards those, and then we have really good comparison data, which is what I think you're kind of poking at, is could we get better comparisons? But if we do that, we'll lose some of your longitudinal data. So, but what we can do is create a survey based on the new one and then bring over some items from the old surveys and then kind of have a hybrid, have your cake and eat it too. So that's something to think about for next year, because then we have really good comparison data. And which is interesting because you can say, is 70% good? yes, you're in the 90th percentile, or you're in the 30th percentile at 70%, so we can really put it into context. But you also spent a lot of time, I think, in 2017 working on your surveys, and they're pretty good. Overall satisfied, okay, that was the seniors and the postgraduate. Postgraduates are difficult, we have to track them down. So this is not a big sample, this is 16%, or 16 out of about 40, so about half will respond. So here we go. 64% live in Wisconsin, we've got some other folks that are California, Colorado, Florida, Indiana, Iowa. It's interesting though, because we saw most, majority would go on to 4-year, which is what they did. We got 19% of the workforce. Some are still full-time students, so of course, kind of correlates. Are you doing what you planned? 63% said yes, 37% changed direction. What helped you plan for life in school, after high school? Same data, parents and friends. Thirds that are better than a third in no one but yourself, high school teachers, counselors. How much of your high school education do you use now? A lot. So maybe 2/3 said, a lot, some, 1/3 said not much. In which of the following are you currently enrolled for your college? 82%, 18% tech. I guess you had to be enrolled in order to answer that one. Industry, well, this is interesting. We had low percent that were interested. Now this is what of course, these are probably summer jobs.
Door County has a ton of that.
Door County is if you're going to work here, it's probably or pick cherries. That would be A.
Well, majority of those college kids probably come home for the summer.
Yep. Annual salary, again, this is 18 months out, less than 15,000, 15 to 30, 30 to 45. Not making the big bucks yet. Describe the preparation to receive each following. This is great, good, fair, poor. Again, you kind of have to remember that if somebody said that didn't apply, then you don't calculate it in the averages if the person didn't respond.
How many years out is this? 1 year, 2 years?
18 months.
18 months. Well, I couldn't tell you the 18 months. A lot of times what happened in high school, which had a great influence on me, didn't dawn on me until I was like 28.
Well, that's the problem. Yeah, that's the real problem to me is we do a 5-year follow-up too with some districts. And the problem is, first of all, the student has to remember back 5 years ago, and then the district has to remember what it was like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Which is really tough. What teachers were here, which ones retired, what curriculum has changed. I'm not sure how you said that.
Bill, if you had 16 respondents from 18 months ago, 5 years out, that 16 is going to drop. It's not going to go up, right?
Not usually.
Yeah.
Not usually, yeah. So I'm not a big, some districts love that. I'm not personally a big advocate of that. So.
That's just to make us feel good.
Well, yeah. I think at 18 months you do have some perspective, but after that I think I can't remember. All right, this is the second slide. Well, this is actually, the first one was kind of the courses, this is kind of the concepts. And then overall, how satisfied are you with your high school experience? So the class of 2020 was a 3.93, class of 2019 was a 3.33. So again, this is a fairly small sampling, but based on the data we got, we calculated that for you. So gain. So that's what I have for you today.
The one thing that I care about out of that whole survey, that 18-month survey is, where they went after school, if they went to tech, if they went to four-year college, are they still there 18 months later? Did we prepare them to stay there?
Well, I think the answer so far is yes. The next question is, did they graduate? Did they made it through their first year? But they're only into their fall semester of their second year, probably.
But it seems like so many drop out.
Yeah,
first semester.
right. Well, I think we saw about was it about 23% were in the workforce. That probably meant they didn't make it.
It's interesting to raise that because at TC now we're having a discussion of what's most important, that you get your associate degree or you get your certification in that field. And there's a lot of going back and forth, with many saying it's more important that you get your certification in how to be a plumber as opposed to sitting there for 2 years and getting your associate degree with one or whatever it is. So,
Well, follow the money.
that's right.
Yeah,
If you're a
there's
licensed
jobs.
plumber, you can charge to do awesome plumbing.
That's right.
You got your 2-year associate's degree. Yay!
So did we prepare them for their,
It's true.
so.
That's true.
Any other questions for Mr. Foster?
But you do or do not have this data then in percentiles based upon everybody takes it?
No, yours is, our comparison sample is getting smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where we don't have a lot of confidence in the data we provide you there. We call them our key measurement system surveys. Probably, I'd say 80% of the districts in the state are moving towards those, just because they are shorter. They're really strongly research-based, and then and as a result, we have good comparison data. So that's something to consider. I always feel bad with districts like yours that have been doing it, because I think that longitudinal is helpful. But we kind of made that change during COVID to say, the feedback we got was, we like your surveys, but some are too long. And then so we said, well, what we did is we went back, and you'll find that things highly correlate. You don't have to ask something 5 different ways. You can ask it one way, and it just perfectly correlates. So we use that research to narrow down our surveys and make them shorter and more succinct.
And back in 17, we did it because we didn't have that research driven.
Yeah, the research we were working off in 2017 was probably 10 years old, and it hasn't changed hugely, but we really dove it. We had, schools were closed.
So when is that decision to be made in order to enable us to implement that, let's say, next year?
Well, really anytime this fall, really up until a couple weeks before you launch.
Let me just maybe revisit that. To me, it makes a lot of
Well, I
sense.
heard you said that a hybrid one would maybe be the way to go. That's.
I think hybrid, you could pick a half dozen items off, the staff survey that you want to keep that aren't measured in the new one, and we can add those. We'll just add an additional section. That's to me, that's kind of the best way to do it. So you'll have 6 longitudinal points, and then you'll have comparison on everything else.
I'd be interested in the future for that discussion, because I think comparing to a lot of other schools, their national numbers is relevant, right? And so comparing to ourselves is important, but you would also, very quickly, you would develop that longitudinal data too.
Next year,
Right.
when you're.
I agree too, because it prevents you from barking on a tree that you're really good at that tree, but you don't think you're good on that tree, you know what I mean?
You might be at 50%, and that might be the best in the state.
Yeah, right, you'd be leading the way,
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so I'm hearing we do survey next year, go with a hybrid.
Well, then we'd have to have a discussion and make a motion on
We
that.
have a discussion right
Right.
now. I mean, I don't think it takes a motion.
It doesn't take a motion.
I think it's a good idea to have, like the hierarchy of we've been doing this now for how many years?
Fifth year.
To lose that, but I like that.
What does the
Comparison.
hybrid bias? Maintaining a longitudinal data, I guess.
Yeah, you get both. You get comparisons. and you
But
get-
we also then, we're always gonna have some, so how would that be? So hybrid is the full new set of
It'd be the full new one, the full new survey. If say your current staff has 60 questions, the new survey might have 30, and then you might bring in 5 more or 6 more
Gotcha,
questions.
okay,
So
so
you get
that-
36. So
because
the survey would be half the length, and you'd have.
Well, right, so I wanted to make sure we use all of this research-based data, right? I mean, that,
You would
the
get
reason we
that.
did that, that matters.
Yeah.
You
So we'll
get-
use all of that, plus some of our other stuff. Okay, yeah, that's cool, I like that. What that's worth.
Okay, we'll let the administration work on that. Any other questions for Mr. Foster?
No, well done.
Good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for driving in.
Yep.
Did we have any guests wanting to comment?
No.
Guest comments? Are there any items that someone wishes to have removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved by consent, and we have donations from Gary and Sharon Fairchild for $1,500 for football and $2,000 toward Phase 2 improvements, and the Door County Community Foundation of $200 for DI. Administrators' reports. Ms. Margaret,
Thank you.
anything you want to highlight that's
Yeah,
not in the report?
I don't want to highlight anything from my report. I do want to inform the board that in mid-June, I was notified by the DPI that the special education department is going to be doing the Reading Drives Achievement Procedural Compliance Self-Assessment for special education. So basically what that means is every 5 years, the special education department has to do a self-assessment to make sure that all of our IEPs are compliant. So I'm starting that process this year. It does happen every 5 years. So my first step is to build a team of teachers who will do that with me. And then we have to pass a course to be able to do that. And then our self-assessment gets submitted to the DPI by November. And then once we get the results, then DPI tells us if there's any corrective action that we need to do as a department. So it does sound like a lot, but I want you to know that this is a really good process for the department to make sure that our IEPs are compliant, number one, and meet the needs of the students. So even though it sounds a little bit daunting, it's a positive process, and I anticipate the staff getting a lot out of the process. And I'll keep you updated on how it goes. But it's a lot of work to do this year, but hopefully we'll get some good information out of it.
Do you have a deadline date?
November 1st is when that self-assessment has to be completed.
Okay.
And then after November, we kind of wait and see when the DPI comes. DPI can come as well and pull some of our IEPs randomly, and that's pretty normal when they do that. So they're really coming in after the self-assessment. We make our corrective actions, and then they can come in again and randomly pull some of our IEPs to make sure that we're consistently doing that. So again, it's a very good process, but that's starting for our department.
A lot of
It's a ton of work, and that's starting right now. So I just wanted to inform you. I'll keep you updated.
Thank you. Mr. Schaefer?
Thank you. I think there's a few great things, but the biggest highlight, I guess, for me is the opportunity. I've set up meet and greets with the staff. I've had, I think, a very good turnout. I think it's been an incredible experience to get to know the staff on a personal level, most importantly. I think some of our dialogue and conversations about them as people were the most fascinating parts of the conversation. I think in every interaction, staff was laughing with me, and I always think that's an important part with somebody you're meeting for the first time. So I feel, as part of being an effective leader is, making sure that we're connecting on a right level, and for me to really understand their life as people, I think allows me to be a more effective leader in their professional life as well, so I can help them and support them. And so it's been nothing short of incredible, and I'm in awe of the background of the staff that we have here on an experience level, on an educational level. It's really been awesome. So that's been a major highlight for me.
Just a quick question. In your report and in Aaron's report, the acronym PBIS is used. What's PBIS?
So PBIS is a positive behavioral program. It's where we are looking to identify positive behaviors in our students. It's a way to kind of create a positive culture within your school and setting up consistent language for our students and expectations. And so it's there's a lot of tiers to it, but ideally we're trying to see our students doing great things and acknowledging positive behaviors because we want that to continue.
Any questions on the athletic director's gifted and talented report? Superintendent's report?
Chris Stoll and I went to CISA on July 11th. It was a day for administrative assistants and superintendents to go. The majority of us had one of the two people new to the role, so she started in January, so she was the new one. They went over the 5 voices of leadership. They had it be categorized either nurture, creative, guardian, connector, or a pioneer. They didn't do any activities to determine what you were, they just said you could self-identify. The CISA stuff was decent, the better part was just the time Chris and I spent together and getting on the same page, and yeah, it was just a good day for us to connect. And then there was a section where she went off and they worked on legal postings, documents, technology, and I was with a lot of first year superintendents for the afternoon, and WSB was there and such, so it was kind of a introduction for the new folks, but it was all right to meet the new superintendents. I think we have 7 or 8 in CISA 7 that are new supes this year, so.
Anything else? No? Okay. I don't have anything except to draw attention if nobody saw it. We took the display of the Blue Ribbon Award that was the National Blue Ribbon School Award that was in the high school hallway, and it's been replaced back here in the Pioneer Room with a nice frames and where it belongs. Anything from the athletic committee that's not in those many documents we got? No? Okay. Budget report?
Budget report, I'll start with the monthly sheet here. We transferred $1,059,254.06 to Fund 27, which is special education. We transferred $6,000 more than we thought we would, so $1,059,000 being off by $6,000 is pretty good. And then Fund 50 food service, we transferred $12,000, which was $18,000 less than we expected. That was due because of the free breakfasts and lunches through the whole school year last year. Fund 46 went up because we received a donation from the TTX for $500,000. And we're looking tonight to transfer money from Fund 10 to Fund 46. Carl gave you a second sheet on that. It looks like this. It's in front of you now. Carl, you want to walk them through that?
I don't think I have that sheet. Yeah, I do. Okay.
It looks like it's got 2 columns.
Fund 10, title of it is Fund 10 Fund Balance. So if you look at the top lines, before transfer to Fund 46, I gave one of those.
If you have an extra, I'll take that. Go, press ahead.
So our revenue over, our expenses over revenue for the year, expenses were $188,679 more than revenue, which pretty good for, $11 million budget.
We were projected to be at 776.
Yeah, we projected being a deficit of 776, so our difference is 188,000. Not too bad. So our fund balance at the end of 21 was 6.3 million, and take the difference in revenues and expenses, so our fund balance drops to 6.1 million.
Almost 6.2.
Yeah, almost 6.2 million. So the next, when the auditor looks at your fund balance, they're taking the total unassigned balance as a percentage. And generally, they want to see that between 25 and 28%. I don't feel comfortable with that amount, but right now, if we don't do a transfer, we're at 55%. It's a little bit high. So if you look at the next section down, if we do the transfer to Fund 46 of $1 million, our expenses obviously go up $1 million, so our difference is about 1.2 million. So then our fund balance drops down to 5.2 million, and our unassigned balance goes to 42%. And that's very much in the comfort range of what I'd like to see our fund balance unassigned fund balance percentage at. It keeps us out of short-term borrowing, keeps our cash flow there. We can still pay the bills, but we're not so high that we're just sitting on cash. And we're also looking, not so much this year, but next year, of doing the Fund 73 transfer, because we're not ready. If we wanted to do Fund 73, we'd have to do it within the next week. We don't have any of the accounts or anything like that set up yet. Okay, we just approved it tonight. That's pushing it too much for the banking industry, so put in Fund 46, because we still gotta finish paying for Phase 2 project. So, and then next year, if we, if we can do another transfer to the Fund 73 to pay our OPEB trust.
Well, after July 30th, it doesn't matter if we make the transfer on August 1st or June or July 30th next year. If you go back to this sheet, the Fund 10 cash on hand is 5.1 million. We still have revenue from property taxes for the 21-22 school year coming in July and August here of $2.9 million, because when people pay their taxes in July, we don't get it until a month later. So we still have cash coming in, but it's not cash on hand, but it would be considered part of your fund balance.
Because we've already put it in as a revenue, and then we just have accounts receivable at the end of the year. So to do the transfer before July 30th, then you can put it on last year's expenses. Okay, if we wait till after June, then it goes on the next year's expenses, on the new fiscal year expenses. So we can still do the Fund 46 and legally keep it on 21-22 fiscal year expenses.
Any other questions about the budget report? If there are none, we'll go to the facilities reports.
All right, I'll start off with this building. After the 4th of July, the week of the 4th of July, the Marshfield came and ripped out the high school lockers, because the new lockers were coming on the 18th of July. They did not come on the 18th. They said they're coming on the 26th. They're not coming on the 26th, now they're coming on the 11th of August. So I'm a little nervous about that, but just thought that out. Yeah, we know lockers in the high school. The crew came and tore them out.
They say they're gonna come
Because
September.
they're coming 2 weeks later to put them in. Yeah, so we're sitting without lockers in the high school right now.
Probably, based on what I'm seeing, it probably wouldn't hurt to start having a discussion about some scenarios about what you do if you don't have lockers installed yet.
Yeah, we just got that email today saying it's gonna be August 11th, and so I emailed back and said, that's not acceptable, because we want to get the kids their locker assignment and combination for registration, which is
So
August 1st and
sourcing
2nd.
steel's been tough, so.
They said steel and workers at the factory shortage. Yeah, so, yeah, we will come up with a contingency.
Not a lot of detail, but just in case.
It's probably gonna be backpacks.
I wouldn't bet here, the range that they're gonna be here.
No.
Do you
Well, however, I'm irritated with Marshfield for coming and tearing them out the week of the 5th, and they said, yeah, they're coming here on the 18th. I wouldn't have had them come after the 4th of July and rip them out if I would have known they weren't, they said, we're gonna get them out of here, our crew guys get them out, so when on the 18th, we can have it all prepped, ready to put the new ones in. Okay. I would have waited till they were on site.
And the only burden with someone on your staff is following up with them regularly. I mean, that's about the only leverage you got, just to make sure we're on their radar, because they got probably other schools they gotta get in there, so.
Oh, yeah, I'll call Ted again tomorrow.
Yeah, thanks a lot. That's
we're
all you
good.
can do, right? Just keep
Right,
going.
that's all.
We're asking for your lockers back in the meantime.
Yeah. But they
I'll
said
take that
steel
back.
shortage and shortage of workers in the factory.
Critical thinking for the kids would be a great experiment.
What's your plan? Wasn't that your initiative
What's your
last year?
strategy?
What's your strategy?
Yeah, what's your strategy?
strategy?
Right now, I'm just gonna keep hammering.
No, we'll get it done.
We will get it done.
Optimism with
But it's,
backup plan.
yeah, no, but they just pushed it back twice, right? I know, yeah, no, I know. So that's the building, anything else in the building? Summer school's done, everything's functioning fine. We did have, I guess we should talk about the electrical with the mop sink in the kitchen. The electrician, or no, not the electrician, the plumber was cutting a pipe which he thought went to sewer for the hookup for the drain. Anyways, it wasn't, it was electrical, and he's lucky he's alive. But it's about this thick, and it's got, I don't know, 12, 15 cables in it, and he hit it, his saw got shut down, and it was okay.
Oh my
But they had to pull the line from the kitchen then, all the way to the face room, and put a new one in. So,
They, pay for that, obviously, themselves.
Massart, well, the electrician had to do the work. If the plumber made the mistake, the electrician had to do the work. So we just got the bill today from the electrician, and it's less than our deductible. So we're gonna have to talk to the plumbing company and say, hey, you hit this.
Yeah,
but I should go your
clearly they
way.
should be covering
Yeah,
the electric
right.
bill.
But we just got the bill in the mail today. Yeah. So I guess that was a.
And that shouldn't be a big discussion, I mean,
Right, yeah, it should
clearly
be.
he did that.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah, those are the two things in the building that are unique. Yeah.
Yeah, the plumber's lucky that there's an OSHA here to investigate that.
The field?
The field project, we've been on Hutchinson pretty difficult to get work done. However, I think it was Wednesday, Monday, he was here all day. And the field, we walked on Tuesday, and Brooke and Katrina and myself are all pretty satisfied with the progress he's made. Now, outside the track area, he's gonna have to run some hoses to get some irrigation, get that grass growing, because it's dry, you know. But that's okay. He's got it all groomed and properly seeded now and ready to go. The football field, there was a couple low spots, and he's filled them in. The east D zone, they call it, he had to rip up and grade to go towards the drains, and that's all now properly done. So, and that's out of the playing area, it's past the end zone, so that's good. So the field should be playable this fall. The grass is really good. And he's got to put 2 dump trucks of top dressing sand on it yet. We still got to do that. So we're moving in the right direction on that. 2 weeks ago, I was not happy with the progress at all, but last week and Monday was a huge day, so, yeah.
So what's today, your first game?
Middle school has one there on the 29th
Okay.
of August.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah, so it'll be good. And then the concession stand, there's a back order on the brick, which was 5 weeks out last week, so it's now 4 weeks out. They offered to change the color pattern, and we're staying with what we wanted because we don't like the look of the way it is, so we're staying with what we wanted. The other option was to hire an Omni Paint to paint the brick the right way, but then we'd have to go back and paint it every 5 or 10 years, and it wouldn't look as good as the brick, so we said, no, we're holding out for that. So they're working on their ticket booth a little bit and some other areas that they can while they're waiting for the blocks. So I don't know, but that's another thing. They tell you 5. Last week they said 5 weeks. Is it 5 or will it be 7? You know, I mean,
Right.
yeah.
But I think you should get to what you want, because we're gonna live with that building for a very long time.
Right. And then the old concession stand will get out of here. Dan Petrini's going to haul it away on his own time, and he's going to make a donation for it. But we're keeping the old concession stand until the new one has occupancy. Yeah. Which it'd be nice to take it away now while the fence isn't in place, but that's too bad. You know.
Mr. Licky, is there an update for the playground?
What?
An update for the playground?
Playground, the area has been prepped for the playground out there, and the date it's supposed to come. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Well, that's no worries.
I thought it was July 26th, but I didn't put it on my calendar.
And so that when you say come, then the playground equipment will come, and then the crew comes and installs
The
it?
crew comes and installs it just like the one that's
Yep.
by the kindergarten wing.
That's probably something too, I hope you're following up with dates and seeing them, because I
just
know
emailed
whether
her
you
today
should-
about it, yeah.
It's constant, yeah.
Yeah, it's always, yeah, it's coming, and then, just like blocking everything else, too, yeah. But we have the play area, we can start school the way it is, and just rope that off, yeah, and there'd be plenty of area for the kids to play at. It's just gonna be enhancements, so.
Can you imagine what it would be like if this project been 24 months later?
Yeah, no,
Oh,
we wouldn't have been able to afford it.
Our timing is everything on this,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
what,
the fundraising effort does continue, so talk to people that you know. Any small donation, they get their name on the wall, make it in memory of your graduating class, in memory of somebody that's passed. There's all kinds of opportunities.
Lisa, on that, I just had a conversation with Brooke because we're doing one for my brother, but she is in the process of getting ready to send out for the Brooksville engraving and that. So if you want him on the first one, get him in as soon as possible.
Okay, yeah, we need to do some kind of a Facebook post, last chance. Okay, board goals, we did not finish looking at the school board self-evaluation, but we did put it on the closed session agenda this month because we have such a long meeting, but we'll pick up on that next month. Our superintendent evaluation process calls for a mid-year formative discussion with the superintendent regarding specific standards, goals, areas of focus, and what assistance we can provide him or he may need. So we'll look to do that in closed session in August. You can think about that. And last time we talked about reading the Studer book, and there wasn't a great appetite to do that, but there may be another option that the administrative team can,
I should go
can
back.
work on.
Yeah. Okay, on Monday, I met with 3 gentlemen from the student group. They have a different program, and I would just involve our admin team, 2 principals, people service director, and then the head of each department, Stephen, Carl, Dan, Katrina, Casey, and Brooke Tank, yeah. Have us as a team. It's quarterly. I have a follow-up meeting on August 3rd with them, and I'll bring it to the August board meeting then. It's based on your enrollment of students, and for schools with over 500 but less than 1,000, I think it's $10,000 compared to $60,000. So I want to read it a little bit more, meet with them again on August 3rd, and I'll be bringing it to the August board meeting. But I think that's a better level than you guys do a book study. Let the admin team do it.
We'll move to new business then. And is there a motion on the notice to parents and guardians and academic standards?
It's an annual event, and we just list every option the kids so.
I would move to approve the Sevastopol District list of educational options as notice to parents and guardians on academic standards.
Second.
Are there questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The update on the revenue limit exemption for energy efficiencies. Energy efficiency.
Years ago, you guys did an energy efficiency project. The final payment is due March 15th of 2023 for $131,944.58. Same cost it's been for all the years. So this is the last year we'll have to make this motion because then this is paid off.
Move to approve the resolution for revenue limit exemption for energy efficiencies.
Second.
Are there questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The senior tax exchange program pay increase, is there a motion on that?
Is someone going to explain that to us? That's awesome. I never heard of something like that.
Really?
Well, okay, this is when someone volunteers, a senior citizen volunteers here.
But they get so the tax refund comment is because we're taking school money, which is tax dollars, back to them.
Right.
Okay.
We pay them right now the whopping $5 per hour.
Well, I know.
And so maybe we should up that a little bit because that's pretty low.
Yeah.
Now, you keep it, it's been that way for, I don't know,
How
how
many,
many years?
how many people do that, or how much do we?
3 or 4 a year.
Wait, has this been on the books for years here at the school?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was new.
No, this
No.
And we
isn't
put
new.
this
No,
every
the
year.
reason I'm bringing it is because someone handed their hours, it's like, well, we're paying you $5, that's
Yeah.
not much, you know, I mean, I don't know, and it's been $5, this is my 6th year here, so it's been $5 for more than 6 years.
Yeah.
And there's a limit to the number of hours that they can put towards it.
Right, it's capped.
Well, and then there's a process of evaluation of who's appropriate for helping kids and all that.
They go to the principals and principals say, yeah, you can do this to help us, but it's maxed at 70 hours per year.
Well, I mean, on the cost wage, would the school and all the challenges or areas that we have, or would we benefit if we increase
It's
the cost?
great if
Or,
we
you know,
have volunteers and maybe word gets out, we may have a few more volunteers say, oh, okay, now I'll go in, you know? Yeah,
What would you recommend?
Doubling it?
I wouldn't go too high, I'd go 750 to start with.
750?
Yeah, 750, because in 2 years from now, we'll increase.
Do we need to
it.
do a free lunch? I get you, no, it's not.
What? You want 10, what do you want, 10, go with 10, but I don't want to. Yeah.
Throw in a free
The
lunch.
purpose,
Now we get that.
I think
I know, what is
what
it?
is the purpose to help our retired community financially, or is it to help our school? I mean, what was
It's
the
a
purpose? I don't
combination.
know.
The purpose is to get the senior citizens to come to the school and volunteer to help our kids out, which helps our school.
So the interaction, when you read through it, the interaction of the,
There was a time.
because a lot of people would do that for free.
It happened as a years ago, we had a program, I can't remember,
This
the
gives us
STAR
some
program or
incentive.
something. There were tons of senior citizens that came in and connected with kids and they kind of fell off. So it's a positive in that way to get people in.
Well, and we had more volunteers pre-COVID. And
Yes.
Well, that, of course,
Right. So,
I'm good for increasing it too much.
So how do we let?
I make a motion to increase it to $8 an hour from $5.
Second.
To what?
$8?
Okay.
Questions or discussion?
You know, Sevastopol has a wealth of older citizens.
Well, I didn't know this existed, because I know that program you talked about was very active for a while. That was
And I don't know if those people were getting paid.
some of our
They just-
volunteers won't hand their hours in.
Oh, yeah, they just do it, they just do it for something to do.
Right.
But there are a few that actually turn it in, put it in, and we send a check to the county and for their taxes.
So since Sevastopol has a wealth of gray-haired people like myself, how does this message about this get out?
Right, no one, who even knows?
Who knows about this? How do we publicize it? Well, I think there's a lot of people out there.
Well, I guess we'll put it in the district newsletter this fall. I've mentioned it on the radio in the past. Yeah.
Do we ever do outreach, those community
Yeah, let's
classes? Do you
WDR,
mail
right.
stuff out, or how do we get that out?
Yeah.
Do we ever talk about the STEP program in the community outreach? Can we just add that in there as a little paragraph and then,
Sure.
I mean, just to say, hey, by the way, we do all that community
I think
programs.
if you give some specifics of where people,
Yeah.
come in and read to kids in the library, or come in and read,
Yeah.
so people kind of know what they might need.
So they're not coming in blind.
Well, and if some people don't like working with kids, there's still things to do. You
You
can
can
help
file-
a teacher make copies, you
Copies,
can
yeah.
cut something for them, you can.
Well, you could probably help
in the shop.
Call in the shop.
Right,
There's a whole
yeah.
lot of handy carpenters out there that would probably
Right.
help the boys cut wood, and girls, you know.
But I think it needs to be an organized program, not just.
Okay, well, first step's increasing it, and then we'll get word out.
Well, I just, it was.
It talks about a STEP administrator in here, who is that? You?
It must be me.
See, that's what I'm saying, like, this is, I think has a valuable potential in this community, but it behooves the school to organize it, communicate it.
That's one of our missions. All right.
Huh?
I'm on it, we got it.
It can all go to you,
Well, no,
or it won't get
no, I'm
done.
gonna delegate
You got
it.
too much on your plate.
I'll delegate it to someone, don't worry, no, we'll get word out, whatever it is, you know.
We'll find a spot for you, Jerry.
I already
If
push,
you just wanna help sweep up the.
I already
kitchen
push
floor.
wheelchairs once a week, but,
Custodians.
He's gonna do valet parking out in front.
yeah.
So there's a motion and a second for $8 an hour. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. Then we have the employee handbook.
Last month, we made the changes for personal days. The only thing that's been changed other than that is the updating of the numbers, like teacher's salary ladder, all of those position, all that, insurance numbers. That's the only thing that's changed. I'm not making any recommendation that changes other than updating the numbers. Those are approved in February.
Would someone like to make a motion on the employee handbook?
Make a motion to approve the employee handbook for 2022-23.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then we would need a motion on stipends to be paid.
We have, and in front of you have the coaching stipends.
Oh, we skipped one.
First, the
Oh, did we
position.
move E up? Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yes, we moved you up.
Sorry, excuse me.
So there's 3 pages. There's stipends, and there's coaching, and the coaching one's in front of you because I included the packet. And then there's hourly job and rates. These haven't been increased in a couple of years, so I'm recommending we go with 3.2% increase, to be consistent with what we made the salary increases. You'll see like for the first page, the increase in cost is
You were gonna
less than
increase
$1,200.
all categories?
Just, when we did the athletic director,
Yeah, she doesn't get that part. But that sits there in case we go back to some other system in the future. Right, right. So the first page, all those would add up to less than $1,200. Increase. The coaching stipends, the second page, which is in front of you, the increase would be $2,087 for all those positions combined. And they put a lot of hours in, all these folks do. The last one I can't, the second one, the hourly job and rates, I can't tell you what the cost is on all those because we don't know how many chaperones, we don't know how many dances and curriculum writing and all that kind of stuff, we don't know how many hours it will end up being. But it's, again, not too much increase. 52 cents, 57 cents, 98 cents is the largest one.
So the superintendent is recommending a 3.2% increase for each of those categories.
So move that we increase the stipends by 3.2%. Is it? 3.2.
I'll second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Dress code. So we have, this is a new dress code in front of us?
So it's a more updated dress code, just cleaning up some of the language to be a little bit more precise and I think clear.
Are there any significant changes?
There's no changes to like the items that were put on there. It's just to clean up the verbiage and to make it a little bit clear. I think, from my perspective, I think it's hard not having been with the staff at all and putting this together and, really helping them and talking with them about it. So that makes it a little bit difficult, but so in drafting this, I was thinking about when we talk about our standard of excellence and what we're expecting and trying to define, what is our standard as far as that goes? What are we willing to accept? What are we not willing to accept? And
As the board looks at items 1 through 15, any questions on any of those, discussion, that you would say, well, that should be allowed or not be allowed, or?
I certainly agree on the saggy pants. And the hoodies, that has not been allowed. Wearing hooded.
well, and another thing I really want to make sure that we're staying away from is interpreted language. Like when you talk about modest dress, what you consider modest and what I consider modest could be two very, very different things. Sure. And that's why feeling specific language helps us to hold some accountability there, but also maintain a high standard of excellence.
So in our packet, there's also an elementary dress code. Are we approving both of these?
The elementary one is the one we've always had. The first two you got, the middle school, high school, and that was what was existing in the handbook, and this was the elementary, and it's always been in place. I would recommend just staying with the elementary, because dress code
So
really
we don't have,
isn't
there's not a change to the elementary?
No, it's a change at the high school, middle school level, because that's truly where the issue always is. It's not the little
Is
guys.
there a motion then on the middle school, high school dress code?
Move to approve the high school, middle school dress code as presented.
Second.
Questions or discussion?
I just have one thing, like on some of these, like on tackle, bedroom, slippers, pajama, sleepwear, obviously like homecoming week, special things, those would be allowed.
Yeah, so on the back, there's under notes, It talks about, administrative
Yeah.
principal has the right, we're gonna have dress-up days, we're gonna have fun days.
Cool.
Those are important.
I didn't read that, I didn't put that right. My bad. Thank you.
Yep.
Well, pajamas.
If you say it's okay, then I'm okay.
They don't want my pajamas.
Then we've got a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The cell phone, middle school and high school cell phone policies and procedures.
This is what we currently have. Last month, there was some discussion about having a rack outside the room and the kids walk in and put it in there. I didn't know if that's the direction you want to go or not, so I put on the agenda after hearing the discussion last time and seeing if that's a system you want us to put in place. If so, we'd order the plastic pockets tomorrow and they come in January.
Where would you put that outside?
I would rather
Come
not,
in the
I don't
classroom and
recommend
just on the wall.
I just think that can,
Yeah.
what happens if it falls and breaks?
Okay.
I'm just.
That's why I got-
Now, the other issue of discipline, if the kids are taking their phone out in class, I would, discipline should be applied. I think that's the difference. That's why I was up on the survey, actually. If we start being more consistent and the kids know not to take the phone out, the problem goes away. If we're not going to enforce our own rules, then let's add more rules to make it easier to not
The
enforce.
thing about this system is it would be consistent for the teachers then from room to room to room. You come in, you put it there, it's done,
I don't know. I think classroom discipline is a requirement of the teacher. And classroom discipline for a second grade teacher is very different than a junior teacher. So yeah, I think if you chose teaching, you chose to manage kids.
But I think there's a different level of, elementary kid with a cell phone in a high school. I don't think any kid needs to be on their phone, whether you're in high school or not, during class.
Well, we already have that rule.
But like at lunch,
We had discussion last time and thought that might be a tool that would help. And so I brought it here tonight. If you want to stay with the old system, that's fine, but
Is the staff saying, is the staff telling us they can't manage it?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
you may
my
not-
question. Is the staff complaining?
Yeah.
Mr. Schaefer, meet with teachers, what are they saying?
So I think that when the few teachers that I've talked to and when we brought up the cell phone, I think the management part of having a student put it in a pocket eliminates any distraction because, if the students have it in their pocket, there's always that temptation or, they're still getting messages or whatever. If they have to drop their Apple Watch, their phone in the pocket, it eliminates any of that distraction and allows the teacher to be in charge. So for example, if a teacher wants the students to use their phones to take pictures of a project and put together a presentation, that option is there. But I think it just allows for easy management for, teachers greet the students, student drops the phone off, takes the seat, and we move on.
It's kind of like if you'd say, we're not going to allow candy in class, but you can carry it in your pocket.
I'm just curious about all these kids taking theirs, because most kids in high school have a cell phone.
Yeah.
And I think it's a big distraction. My personal thing is part of the whole media thing, is part of Facebook, the whole thing that they're glued to all their waking hours. And we're encouraging them to bring it along with them.
Well,
We're not encouraging anything.
Well, you're right.
Wait, Jerry, we can't solve society issues again. We're verging into,
But-
let's change
But what I
society.
just heard is you're at least taking the temptation away so that you can be educated and you're not worrying what that buzzing vibration in your, who that is, that could be.
But that's why you're saying you're taking a distraction away, they're putting it in there.
Are they going to shut them off in there? Will they be required to shut them off? Because if not, you'll have a vibrating tree, right? Bzz, bzz, bzz.
Or they just keep them in their
I would say that's right.
Well, that's where I'm going is,
That's why, the assumption I thought that, I guess maybe I.
If they want to check it in between classes, they can check it in between classes.
see, the current policy is should not be seen. And so my only point is, back to the classroom discipline line, take the phone away. And on the third phone, they don't get it back. First time they call at the end of the day, second time you call your parents.
So
And if the
now you
parents
have
don't,
to have a communication system between the teachers that Johnny was caught with us at first hour and third hour, and who's going to the fifth hour?
Well, that was our current, I was referring to our current
I
policy.
think we just said, put it in their lockers when you come in. It's like your coat. You put it in your locker, you don't wear it throughout the day.
Mr. White?
Yes, I just, the original question, is it a problem right now? Is it a problem that exists, or are we going to create a problem by trying to acknowledge a problem that doesn't exist?
Yes, exactly, that's my
So
point.
if it's not a problem now, why are we creating a problem?
It is a problem.
It is a problem.
Well, there's a cell phone problem out in society. The
It
question,
exists in school. I didn't sign up, Madam President, but I speak for the substitutes that come in.
well, I think we're getting there, so.
I can't do that, because if I do it this meeting,
Okay.
I've got to do it next meeting for
I won't
somebody
speak
else.
We'll get the
that
point.
you're
We're getting
missing
there.
out on subs because they won't do that. They won't take them away and.
So, and it's a consistency, you know, this teacher allows it, this teacher doesn't allow it.
I want to add something. You know, I spent a lot of time talking with the associates, right? There's 17 associates that support students in classrooms. And overwhelmingly, they had said this year that there's inconsistencies in how the teachers are dealing with cell phones.
Mrs. Margraf, when did they tell you this?
The end of the school year.
When you did a survey with each one exit interview, right?
I did. So I evaluate them. I sit down with them. I said, well, what is working this year? Where are the challenges? It came down to the inconsistencies in our classrooms. Teachers are not consistent in policy, and they see it. So they see the cell phones. And a lot of our associates are working with our students in pupil services. So they're all over the pupil services kids. You know, put your cell phone away, put your cell phone away. And they're having a really hard time because 2 students down have their cell phones out too. So I don't think that our teachers are not, they might not be able to see it all of the time, right? But there is inconsistencies, you know, so you know, and that's not been a new discussion. That's not just because they said it this year. You know, that has been overwhelmingly, we've talked about the inconsistency to be able to uphold the current policy that we have at Sevastopol. It's nothing's changing.
So what is the remedy?
Trying something different. I'm not sure that this is the, you know, I'm not sure
This
how
might not
you
work,
guys
but
are
it's
going
just
to
an
feel about
attempt.
this, but trying something different
Right.
would show the staff, in my personal opinion, that we are willing to do something different to solve the problem that we keep talking about year after year.
Can I say
I don't know
more
what the
with-
right solution is though, so that's why it's
So
here.
what are the arguments against requiring the students to check their cell phone in their locker when they come to school and take it out when they go home?
Well,
Well, why would a student need a cell phone?
wait, that's not what was proposed, first of all.
Okay, as a possibility, because it's been discussed.
I don't think I think that's really hard to monitor. Did they leave it in their locker all the
Well, that was my follow-up.
Until you find out with it.
Here's why, Jerry. The younger generation and all parents and all the Hey apps, every sports team, just hear me out, cell phone communication has become integrated in their daily lives. If we like it or not, right? Everyone in society can be surveyed and say we don't like it. But Apple and all those guys have done it already. Same with social media. We don't like that either. So I'm not against that either. If we just say no cell phones in school, period, and then policing would be different. Because that's kind of what our current policy is. We should not see your phone during the day. So now the question is, we'll put it in the door. So I'm okay with it. But then, so you put the door in these plastic things, and Dick pisses me off, so I grab his cell phone and leave it in the classroom. Now you got another discipline problem on your hands. That's fine, until you break my phone. Now I got a personal family issue we're going to work.
So what would be wrong with the first week of teacher meetings? This issue is given to the teachers because they have to deal with this, and they recommend to the board how they think the cell phone issue should be handled.
Well,
I would agree with that. I don't think this is something we can solve. We're not in the classroom.
well, we have something on the table right now, Jerry. We haven't voted, so who cares what I say? Everyone has to vote, right? So what's on the table right now is let's do something about it. So I'm just telling you, you're going to deal with a lot of parents that will text their kid, call me, grandpa's picking you up and stuff like that. Can they pick that up on their phone in their locker room at the end of the school bell? Absolutely, because that's the rule today. So then the question is, if we use the plastic things, I'm good with that. But if the smart kids, certain kids that have a really nice device might leave it in their backpack and they're going to go exactly what you said. So then that question is, we put names on it? How do I know everyone put their phone in that plastic thing? So I mean, I can exercise the headache. It just changes where the headache is and who has to be consistent.
So I'm going to switch gears. If a motion is appropriate, I will make a motion that the issue of cell phones be given to the faculty to discuss, and a recommendation comes from the faculty back to this board for a policy, or they recommend a policy list for our adoption.
Well, do you not like the one that was just brought to us about the plastic things at the doors?
I think
Because I mean, that's,
I think it's beyond our,
yeah, it kind of came from our
it's
team.
beyond our scope.
Yes.
You're just repeating what they've already done. They've come and recommended something.
Well,
That
There
came
was
out
an
last
example.
month's board meeting,
Yeah.
talked about the sheets. We discussed it, and the team thought that might be something, because we thought at least we're trying something different, because what we're doing isn't working. If you want to do the staff, it won't happen until in-service days in August, and the earliest we'll bring in September, then you're switching after a month or two into the school year, and kids will have to get used to that, and they'll browse for 2 weeks, and they'll figure out. Our smart kids will keep it in their locker if they have to put it in a sheet every 45 minutes.
So the administrative team is recommending the pockets. Is that correct?
I'm confused.
The administrative team met and you're recommending the policy, put it in the
We
classroom
thought it was at
pockets.
least trying something different that may work, yes, but if you
Well,
want to
why
hear
would
from the
we go
staff.
against the administrative team?
That's what I'm saying, if we're talking about, we're gonna throw it back at them and bring a recommendation, if we already have something kind of on the book, then let's talk.
But now the motion on the floor is from Jerry to go to the teaching staff, so.
Was there a second on Jerry Warwick's motion to
I
give?
withdraw my motion.
So we're in the discussion, by the way.
Can we have the current policy that we have? Cell phones, you come in the morning, it stays in your locker. If we don't have lockers, it stays wherever the heck they're keeping their belongings for the day. If you must take it out during the day and you take it to the room, you put it in the basket. You can have if you're not gonna leave it in your locker and you wanna carry it with you for the 8 hours you're in school, then these are the rules. You put it in the basket when you go into the room. If you get caught with it, like Dave said.
Right now, it says the student may carry it in a backpack, purse, or in his or her pocket. That's what the policy says right now. That's what's been approved. That's what's on the dock right now. So right now, I got mine in my pocket right now, I'm okay. I pull it out
But
during
it
class.
stays in there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because.
Until the teacher says, hey, we're gonna do something, get out your,
Can we just ask one thing? Since we have somebody here at the table who is more than 50 miles away, came from more than 50 miles away, which makes them off the peninsula.
They're an
And makes them an expert. What did they do in Fondle, or in Oshkosh?
Well, that's a great question. In the high school realm, I'm not exactly sure. I know that the kids were allowed to use them in passing, like they had them in, I know they had them out like in their study halls and things like that. I just think when I want to steer back to the pocket, why I think that might be a good idea. You bring up great points. It could lead to other problems, right? But in talking to some staff have the kids actually use their cell phones for projects that they're doing. So to say, let's just keep them in their locker, I think eliminates some things that some teachers are doing. And so I don't think that's good. And I think this is a way to allow them to be used appropriately when they're needed within a classroom if a teacher needs to do that. But then also it's a method to get them out of their hands so they're not a distraction, because allowing them to keep it in the pocket, they're pulling it out. I mean, it's just.
I think cell phones are becoming a very personal thing. And I think you're going to have some parent issues. And outside, I think there's going to be a lot of parents who pay a lot of money for these darn phones for some reason that are going to question this stuff, right? And my perspective, and we've talked about it, and we're always working on it. It's just classroom management. Give me the kids for a week, they would not use their phone in my classroom anymore. Now, granted, I'm in the military for 20 years, but that's how it would work, period. And so, but I guess I'm respecting what you're saying, that doesn't work. So let's do something as an option and we'll see what happens. And piss a few people off, I don't mind. But I mean, phones are a personal thing to a lot of people. Right or wrong, I'm not defending it, I'm just recognizing our society.
You're right about that.
But I go back to our primary mission here is one of education. And we've been told that this is an interference to education.
Well, we've also been told it's a tool for education.
Right?
There's a lot of classes that use it.
If used appropriately.
Well,
Okay.
fair.
And so what we're discussing is what to do if it's not used appropriately. So we have a recommendation, as I understand it, from the senior group. So I make a motion that we approve the.
Well, is the policy, hold on, okay, wait, is the policy that they have to do it, or is the policy that we're gonna go invest in them, and every classroom is gonna have them, and then the teacher, as soon as something happens, it goes in there? Because 17 kids might come in all day long and never have a problem with their phone. Or do we force every kid to put it in there? I don't know how big the problem is, right?
Again, I go back, they're giving us a recommendation. We aren't here to.
I was clarifying the policy. Are we buying the plastic things and putting it there, so when they put it in there, or the policy is, when you step foot in this classroom, your phone's in there? That's a policy clarification.
What's the policy recommended?
Right now, I'm gonna go back. You have the 3 violations here. I keep this as is, and I'd say the procedure in class is, if you bring your cell phone to class, you put it in the rack. And that's the procedure then.
And no matter how good the student is, they're gonna get their phone out and send a Snapchat of somebody making some crazy thing in the shop, because I saw it all day long, out of good students. So,
Yeah, any kid with a good hoodie can text all day, they're good at it. So it's so different than, I don't know, I guess I'm used to cheat by having a little index card, right?
No, I used to put my
Did you
geometry formulas on my slide.
Can I ask-
Right,
did you make a motion, Mr. Warren?
Yes, I did.
What, would you repeat it?
The motion is to adopt a policy regarding cell phones as proposed to us by the seniors leadership group.
Well,
Is there a second?
is
Is there a second? I'll second it. Discussion. Okay, now you can talk, Mr. Warren, Mr. Keck.
Just be clear on the record. This is the old policy, so we were not put anything in front of us. And then what he just said is he's going to add words to it. I'm just clarifying the proposal.
Yes,
is all.
we're gonna keep this, and we're gonna add the procedure
Put in
in
rack
class.
if you bring it to the
For
classroom.
middle school, high school is, if you have your cell phone as you walk into class.
Just
you
to
put it
clarify
in
what
rack.
we're approving.
Yeah. Everything else here stays the same.
So there's one thought that I want to bring up too, because I do, Dave, I totally respect what you're saying too, where the device is personal to kids and they're connected to it. We're a society, we are connected to it. So my understanding of our current policy right now is we're not allowed to have cell phones at all. It has to stay in the pocket at all times. So that's in lunch, in passing, in everything, okay? Is it worth a discussion to think about the connection piece that you brought up to say, if the education happens in the classroom, right? Would we be okay with kids being able to check the phone if they're following procedures in the classroom, if they're in the hallway, to make that connection with the device? So,
You mean during the 4-minute passing period?
yeah, in a 4-minute passing period.
They aren't going to get it. They barely
I'm
have
just
proof
trying to think about the
class.
connection, I'm thinking about the student as well.
I'd
This
be
might
more
be a
open to
stupid,
saying you
this
could
might
use
be,
it at lunchtime rather than passing period.
that'd be
Class period, you're
fine.
going
To
from one
give
class
them
to
that
the other.
opportunity to what they
crave.
what they crave and what their life is like this is their life.
It is.
So if
So when they
we
come to
ask them
class, they put it in the
to
pocket
put it in
protector.
there to learn math and to learn everything that they're here to learn, because that's the purpose, in lunch, could we say you can use your cell phones in lunch?
I
Because
think
right
that's
now,
consistent with what we're saying.
We're not allowed to do that.
Oh.
And that's where a lot of the inconsistency happens as well. It happens all over the class, all
I'm
over the
pretty
Well,
sure kids go to the bathroom and use
to
their
flip
cell
my
phone
story,
Exactly
too,
right,
right?
but.
I like the cold turkey.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
The
you-
best way I get my kids' attention, I take the phone.
I think you
Guess what,
would.
that kid's cleaning my house for the next 3 days, right? So let's just try it, let's just try it.
If this is successful, you can always work to a more liberal thing, but it's difficult to work.
Because I do think the lunch thing is just as bad, and everyone's taking pictures and all that kind of stuff, so if we're gonna do it, let's do it. Stick with the recommendation all day long, and it's just, they're not using them. And this here actually, theoretically, was they're not supposed to be using it all day anyways. So, and you're right, there's a lot of coworkers that, that you can use your phone in shops and stuff like that. So, our organization has that policy in our shop, so. All right. Just so we know what we're getting into.
And some of the rural bands, cell phones too.
Is there other discussion? Mr.
I guess-
Wolfman, will you read the motion?
I would just like to have an update on how this is working after about a month or so, this new policy.
Well, and a follow-up, if I may, Sue, is if you want to change it again, come to, because
Yeah.
we're recognizing there should be something improved.
Yeah.
I think phones are a complete distraction.
And I guess
Social
I'd like
media.
some input from the kids on how it's working. Well, I mean, hey,
Oh, that's gonna be horrible.
well, they're our
Well,
customers.
the upside to that comment is, we go cold turkey, and then all the kids say, all right, if you're good, maybe we can change the school board's mind and give a new
Yeah.
policy. To see what they come
They're our
back with.
customers.
Throw that to the student council to discuss.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I get your connection.
The September board meeting might be a little soon, might be.
well,
October, but-
October, whatever.
Mhm.
Mr. Wolfman, will you read the motion back?
I don't know if I can. So we have a motion by Mr. Warwick with a second by Ms. Beery to,
Adopt the recommendation from the senior leadership group regarding the use of cell phones.
thank you.
Do we
Do you have
want
last comment? Anybody have last comment? No? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The high school athletic, thank you, that was a spirited discussion. The high school athletic code of conduct.
Can we talk about gum in school now?
We got enough.
The biggest problem in 1965.
So, this is the document, is there,
Can the athletic committee hit the finest
are
points
there
of
points
this?
that you want? I
the
mean,
changes
there's a
part?
lot of changes in here, but seems like good changes. I don't know if you want to talk about it or take a motion first, or.
You want to go just the top points? Here, all right, so.
Where's her email too?
That's what I was gonna go through her summary point, just because it's shorter than all the summary
Yeah.
pages. Or when you guys have it, you-
I got it.
yeah, why don't you want to summarize it?
Sure, I can just read it out through, yeah. Should I just read her email?
Sure.
Okay. So I wanted to provide you with my simplest version. This is from Brooke. Simplest version of points to emphasize at tonight's meeting in regards to the athletic code changes. You have a 3-page version and a 13-page version. Below are the biggest highlights to emphasize. Number one, it's been 10 plus years since the code has been seeing changes, updates, reviews. I felt there were important items missing from the school, team, department, and WIA that I found in most other handbooks. 2, higher standards of excellence for behavior and academics were needed along with additional clarification that was not previously in the old handbook and code of conduct. A, violations are now academic or non-academic. B, academic standards increased from no longer allowing Fs in non-core classes and increasing the minimum GPA from 1.5 to 2.0. C, non-academic violations now encompass all behavior issues. Prior to this, there were various categories that were under handbook violations. Suspensions now have clear language and are treated with how our conference originally intended them. And D, clarified what happens during a suspension. 3, added the restorative justice piece for first-time violations. The handbook and code of conduct were always 2 separate documents, and it was hard for parents to understand and follow. I revised the entire document to put everything in one place. 5, added a set of standards for players, parents, and coaches. And 6, clarified and changed our philosophy to align with our mission and culture of Pioneer Athletics.
would expand on something. This actually kind of goes in line with the phone call, the cell phone thing. We're recognizing that maybe we should, as a school board, increase some of the standards. And I think, sir, you said it best. I can repeat it, but we should expect the best from them, and then let's enforce that. And so that's why. And there was a lot of discussion behind all of this, and a lot of research that Brooke brought to everybody. And then the restorative justice piece I thought was worth emphasizing, and I didn't know if you wanted to explain that, just because I think it's awesome. So we're raising the bar and saying there's going to be more discipline. But this restorative justice, I don't know if you brought that or Brooke did, but you explained it well before.
Yeah, so the restorative justice piece is to take a really negative outcome and shoot for a negative action and turn it into a positive outcome. So, there's a tremendous amount of research that supports that punitive punishment for students doesn't bode very well for change in behavior. It only leads to more poor behavior. And if we don't offer an opportunity for our student athletes, if they make mistakes, to repair those things, restorative justice is about repairing. So an example of that, in which I shared, is let's say we had 2 student athletes messing around in the bathroom. They destroy the paper towel dispenser. Okay, so then there would obviously be a punitive consequence to that, right, which would cause them to miss 25% of their season, because we have a high standard for our student athletes. They're representing us outside of school, and that's important. But the restorative option to that would look like this, that we would bring the students in, we'd bring their parents, and we'd bring the custodial staff in. And they would have a meeting. The students would have an opportunity to be remorseful, express their being apologetic, but it doesn't end there. So then, after they do that, they have to listen to the custodial staff talk about, how much those cost, the time it takes to install that, and then it doesn't end there either. So this is where the positive relationship comes in, and we repair that, is then the students would have to, with the direction of a custodial staff member or multiple ones, would have to put in the towel dispenser themselves. So they have to reinvest back into the school, the property that they destroyed. And by that time, with the custodian, relationship develops, because there's conversation and you're helping, and they're helping put the school back from what they destroyed. The other piece is they have to make up for the cost of the paper towel dispenser. So families say, well, we're not paying the $40 for that. Then on top of that, the students would have to work 1 hour, or would get paid $10 an hour, and would have to put in 4 hours of service only with the custodial staff, since that's where the relationship damage was caused. Once again, spending more time with custodial staff, understanding their role, and then giving back to the school and being invested in doing a positive behavior that helps our school. And therefore, we would cut their sentence, or their punishment in half, so it wouldn't be as punitive. We're recognizing, hey, you made a choice, there's natural consequences, there's consequences to your choice, but hey, we believe in you, we believe in the second chance, we believe that you can turn this around, and it's a great opportunity to promote investment into their school that they're a part of. They're just not a member going to school here. They're not just a student. They're a huge, important factor to our learning community, and every role is important. And by putting in a restorative justice model for behaviors like that, it's no different than the honesty clause that we have. I mean, that is a form of restorative practices, because we're promoting students, if they make a bad choice with alcohol, to be accountable and turn themselves in early and acknowledge that. We're promoting what we talked about in our PRIDE model, personal responsibility. I screwed up. I need to take personal responsibility to fixing and repairing what I've done. And we acknowledge that, and we minimize the time they have to spend out of athletics.
And if the student or the family says, no, they're not looking, so they come for 4 hours, Okay, so be it, then you serve the full suspension.
Yep, so, just like in life, we're giving everybody an opportunity to do the right thing, and if you choose not to, well, then you are
You serve the time.
serving your time.
Second offense, if there's a second offense?
Second offense, we're not offering a restorative, it's like a second chance, not a third and a fourth and a fifth and ongoing, in that case. And once again, having a high standard for our student athletes that are representing our school.
Is there a motion to accept the athletic code of conduct?
Move to approve the high school athletic code of conduct.
Second.
Further questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then we have the Fund 10 transfer to Fund 46.
Move to approve the value referenced for the Fund 10 transfer to Fund 46.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then we have the rule of the Wisconsin Rural Schools membership, which is $500 a year.
Wisconsin Rural Schools does lobby on our benefit. They also hold a fall conference every year for rural schools, which this year they're hosting the national one in Green Bay, and they offer scholarship opportunities for our students. So I like their organization because they do more than one thing.
The rural schools did survey their members as to what they were looking for in Madison, in educating our legislators. And some of the top tier ones were fair funding, 86% of the membership, broadband and infrastructure expansion, 62%, rural teacher and administrative shortages, 61%, and special education funding, 58%. So these are some of the issues, along with others in Tier 2 and Tier 3, that the new Director, Jeff Heidi, will be undertaking this year. And an added benefit for all of us in Wisconsin who are members of the Rural School Association is we will receive a $100 rebate on the registration fee for the national convention, which, as Kyle mentioned, is going to be in Green Bay this year. So it's a great opportunity to attend a national convention.
Is there a motion to approve does someone make a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the Wisconsin Rural Schools Alliance membership for the 22-23 school year.
Questions or discussion?
Second.
Oh, second, thank you. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. The renewal of the Fair Aid Coalition membership.
The Fair Aid Coalition is a movement for lobbyists to support legislation that would help our school. They don't offer the conference, that's their only primary focus. It's based on the number of students you have, so our cost would be $1,156.70. I haven't liked their initiative to look for a minimum amount per student. I don't think that's fair across the state of Wisconsin. I don't think it's realistic to get that passed because the number of districts that benefit is outweighed by the numbers that affect the other direction. So, I don't feel strong about this group as the other one.
Well, that was my question. I'm not sure what are they helping? I mean, in one breath, I'm like, yeah, whatever, maybe it helps us, but I mean, I've heard a lot about them, made a lot of briefings, but I don't know they've made outcomes and changes anywhere.
Well, they have gotten some increased categorical aids, which are really important for us, especially in the special
Because
education
of their work,
and high-cost transportation. And they do work very closely with WASB. And I did include in the packet a document which talks about the efforts of the Fair Aid Coalition and educating our legislators about what we need. And they are working to try to get the state to live up to their obligations, legal obligations, to support our schools. And really the amount of money that would require fair aid from the state is minimal. When you look at what the state is providing for voucher schools, it's tremendous what the state is providing. And this is less than 1% that it would increase the state education budget. And our state education budget is really in the middle of the pack as far as the nation in supporting public schools.
Are you saying the voucher schools are getting more per student than?
Oh, yes, yes.
Per student?
Yes.
That has expanded over the last 15 years.
Yes.
It crept in, it started with Racine, Kenosha, Milwaukee, and
Yep.
then it's gone statewide. And when those 3 districts did it, basically the other 69 counties didn't
What did
really
they
care.
do?
They got money for vouchers in those
Yeah.
3 counties.
So public schools changed to become voucher schools?
No,
No.
the private
What it
schools.
is
Public dollars in the private schools, and it
Yeah.
started in those 3 communities, which are 3 of your 10 largest school districts in the state of Wisconsin.
Well, but you also mentioned those public school systems in those communities are struggling greatly.
Absolutely, Racine's got the worst report
Right.
card in the state, yeah.
So the school couldn't get it done. That's another perspective, right?
Right, but the problem was
So
they
where-
took
where
money
my kid can go to
from,
this
they took
failing
the money
school.
from all 72 counties and filtered those 3, and now, since then, it's
Instead of just
expanded
taking it from
statewide.
Yes.
If they just would have took it from Racine and Kenosha County.
That's where your tax dollars are going.
But the other folks, we didn't
most
realize
of
that
our
was
big
happening.
schools
It
anyway.
was,
State tax
Yeah.
dollars are going to the voucher
But
schools.
even before the voucher program, under the funding, those major schools with all the problems got a lot of school funding from rural schools, which is why you have the Wisconsin Rural Association.
Well, you can see on the map, the
I'm not sure it
schools.
changed, it just shifted how they got it.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
they had that Blue Ribbon Commission to revamp, it didn't happen, and we're never gonna get $1,000. That's not gonna
that was
happen
the
because,
15th time the Blue Ribbon Commission's been
because the
formed.
$1,000, if it comes to us, they're gonna have to take it away from those other schools that get all the money. and
Or
they're
just
gonna-
put more money into education.
well, that's a whole different budget discussion that are going on. I don't think this group is gonna make that
That's a
happen.
whole, that's a whole other discussion. So-
And the categorical aid is what this group has been working with too.
Which WASB lobbies for as well.
Yes, yes.
So, it's only $1,000, but, we can look at it and say it's only $1,000, but they've had the same lobbyists for as long as I've been on the school board, and I'm wondering, are we really making any progress, or are we the squeaky wheel? Are they
Well, the flip
hearing
side is
the
if we
same-
don't pay it, I doubt anything will change. It's only, I hear it's only $1,000. But the principle is, why are we doing it if there's no value?
Rural education, rural healthcare is very similar. And in healthcare, we have the same arguments with some hospitals. Why should I belong to the Wisconsin Hospital Association? Because if they get something passed, I'm going to benefit from it anyway, right? So it's a lot of rural hospitals dropped out. At one time, they dropped out of the hospital association. And that didn't fit very well. I just think that the fair coalition thing, that they really probably need to relook at the real priorities from a realistic point of view. They think they're going to get more money for the small schools from the big schools, and the big schools got all the problems. I think it's Whistling-Dixie. I think it's good to have a group like that for small rural schools that can band together. But I think they need to, at some point in time, probably refocus, relook at what the issues are and which are possible to get through. Now, it doesn't hurt to have a.
So then my point is this, we're not gonna get into it tonight, but do we agree with their positions? And how do we communicate to them that we agree or we don't agree? Sue can write to Kitchen, she can write to Jack, but she should do so as an individual, not on behalf of the school board. The school board needs to have those conversations and send a formal communication to those guys. Do we support $1,000, or we want more transportation aid, or we want more,
There's a fact too that there are 3 school districts in Door County that are in this coalition. You know, in Dark County, it's just a simple fact that, you know, we're property rich and we're penalized for that. So, I mean, yeah, and I, you know, every time I ever talk to someone, Kitchens about it, he's always said, and it irritates me, a chuckle about it, because he says, you know, well, you're one of 20 school districts in the state of Wisconsin, there's 400, you know. But I think sometimes you just have to have acknowledgement, and it's not maybe not necessarily keeping fire to their feet or anything, but you need groups like this to keep this out there so that they realize it. Otherwise, you just stepped on and forgotten about it.
And Lisa, to your point, I know we would welcome if the board would like to take some action of particular things that they would like to see this group do, we would welcome something like that.
Well, can we ask them to come and brief us, and what do they do with the budget? It's in public, right? Brief the budget, what do they do with the budget? What are they fighting for? Have them come.
Well,
If they want us to
actually,
pay them money, come tell us why we're giving it to them.
much of that is in here, Dave.
No, I think they can drive up here. We've been giving them $1,050.
I'm certain,
I think that we should tell them what we want.
I'm sure
Well, that's a flip side.
Kelly would be happy to come up.
I think we should communicate to them. I think we as a board should discuss them. What are the real issues that are reasonable? Because that needs to be, you know, do we agree with them, what they're doing now? What issues do we think should be?
That
So
would
for
be
tonight,
great.
we can take no action. We can table for further discussion, or we can approve.
Well, what's our timeline on the contribution?
Please remit by July 30th.
And
Well,
we don't,
If you don't, you can join later, I mean.
Yeah, you can give it to them whenever, they'll take the money, whatever.
Well, we could join now and then develop a proposal that the board would approve of and submit it.
I move that we are already a part of it, aren't we?
We are, it's an annual, it's an annual.
Yeah,
Just
right.
like rural schools, you just join that for another year, there's another one you join for another year.
I move the school board authorize payment of $1,156.70 based on the per student contribution to the Fair Aid Coalition.
I'll second that.
questions or discussion?
I'm making an amendment that at our retreat or whenever we have a strategic planning session, we devote some time in our discussions to those issues which we think should be
Could
communicated.
you make that a separate motion?
Oh, and as a part of the payment, okay.
I mean, yes.
Thank you.
Questions or discussion?
I don't think so. I think it's a waste of money.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Aye.
Who was it?
What was it? You need a visual call, right?
Roll
We'll
call.
do, okay, we'll do a roll call vote.
No.
No.
Aye.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No. Who's that?
3, 4.
4 no's.
3 in the affirmative, 4 in the negative.
Did you have that, did you want to
Carl,
make
did
a
you get
motion?
everyone's vote?
Well, we're not going to be part of, if we're not going to be part of the organization, then there's no sense of us communicating with the organization as part of the priority.
You could make a motion that we discuss it and then possibly join.
Yeah, we can always join again, because we might come to a realization that, holy crap, it's the greatest thing in the world, so I'm just
It
throwing that
didn't pass,
information.
so it's over.
Well, I think you make that.
Well, I'll make the motion for me then.
Well,
I didn't get it all.
I'm not sure.
I make a motion
Carl,
that, I make a, okay.
Let's make sure Carl's up to speed. You got the votes, Carl, on the roll call?
No, no, yes, yes, no, yes, no.
Yes, correct. Correct.
Well, so for discussion, the comment that was made is, we should get to a point where we have a discussion about what we think the big priorities in school are. I mean, mental health keeps going, for rural schools. For rural schools.
Well, that's a different organization, the rural schools.
It's a Fair Aid Coalition. So the question really needs to be, if we want to dig into this, what do we believe our congressional interests are, right? And if the coalition, what helps our school the best in the budget? and then figure out how that, who helps us the best. I mean, like when Joel Kitchens kept briefing us on all that work, that blue ribbon panel, great ideas that would have helped us, but they didn't get through, right? And that was as close as they would have got, because they had pretty good involvement up at this, in Madison, but it didn't go.
So did you want to make a motion to discuss this?
Yeah, the essence of, I make a motion that during our strategic plan, we just, the ferry, instead of just saying we don't, because I don't know enough about the ferry coalition to say we don't do it, okay? So I think we need this, so you don't cut your nose to spite your face. And then also harm the other ones, because some people from the bigger schools, they look at schools are dropping out. You don't want that to happen either, because it's all with a paintbrush of rural, okay?
No, it's not all rural.
Ferry Coalition isn't rural.
No.
It's the school
It's
district.
Lake Geneva, that's not rural.
Wait.
You know, it's
resort area.
Resort area and some of the Milwaukee suburbs.
I don't think it's gonna go anywhere, because when we, back in school conventions too, when you talk to them, anyone with high property value, you say, you're lucky, enjoy it, have a good day.
Yeah, they don't feel sorry for you.
You don't, go live in the middle of Wisconsin, they don't have high
Well,
property.
okay, so maybe sometime we do have a retreat or meeting, and we look at what are the legislative issues coming forward, and how do we feel about those? Do we support them? Do we not support them? Who do we want to communicate these to? Do we want to communicate on them, or do we don't?
So therefore, my motion is at the time we ever do a board retreat, that we give some time to discussing rural issues in education that we see here that need to be communicated or however.
Okay, the appropriate time for this would be under board goals. What we have under old business, next time we have board goals.
Yeah. So maybe we don't
Then
get
we
much.
show a working session on legislative, if that's what the goal of the board is. Yeah.
Ferry Coalition may call up too, because they're gonna realize.
Did you have some kind of motion on that, Carl?
I don't know, do we have a motion or not?
I don't think we do. I don't think there's a need for a motion.
That should be an agenda.
Okay,
We have board goals on every month, so that should be a board
we'll
goal.
add that to board goals next month. Can we receive a motion on the resignation of Mark Carroll as assistant girls soccer coach?
Move to approve the resignation of Mark Harrell as the assistant soccer coach.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Was David Keith. Resignation of Elise Anschutz as an aide.
Some of the resignation of Elise Anschutz as an aide.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Michelle Anschutz with her request. I'm sorry, yeah, Michelle Lattenbach. Request for time off. Do you want to comment on that?
Yes, a couple of years ago, she had a request similar to this, but because of COVID, the trip was ended up canceled, so she never went the time it was approved. Because we've been doing it.
So she hasn't used her.
Right, we've been allowing, our practice has been one time of a lifetime, I'm gonna call it. Well, she didn't use her one lifetime because they got canceled because of COVID, so this would be her once in a lifetime. I thought you guys should know that.
That's very good.
But
I remember this exact same write-up. Like,
I remember that name, that's why.
Right, that's why I want to make sure it was clear, this was not a second, right.
Is there a motion?
I would make a motion to approve Michelle Lombard's request with a note in her file that she's used her one-time exception.
Great.
Is there a second?
Second.
Jeff? Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Stacy Schrader's request for time off.
Very similar, we only allow one personal day that part of the year. She has two family events, both in Rotterdam. Her daughter goes to a, no, it's college, it's college or high school?
No, it's high
No,
school.
this is the high school. She goes to a boarding high school in Watertown, and then they got a family wedding in Ohio. Her husband's a pastor, and he's gonna officiate it, so she'd like to travel with him.
And she's not had a request like this?
She is not, and I appreciate her writing a letter like this rather than calling in sick on a Thursday. Okay.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve Stacy Schrader's request.
second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. We don't have any items agenda under legislative. We'll probably be discussing some of those next time. Is there a motion to approve the policies as listed?
I make a motion that we approve the policies listed in item R of the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Are there questions or discussion on any of those? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. That concludes our regular business. I'll take a motion to move into executive session.
I make a motion to adjourn to the executive session.
Second.
Roll call vote. Keith?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried at 9:59 p.m. 08 p.m. So we'll take a motion on the, first on the study hall aid.
I make a motion to approve the hiring of Sherry Stenzel.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Math interventionist, aid.
Make a motion to approve Lisa Mock as the math intervention associate.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Middle school football coach.
Move to approve the hiring of Brian Keene as middle school football coach.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Volunteer high school girls basketball coach.
Move to approve the volunteer high school girls basketball coach, Pat Blizzle.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Volunteer high school cross-country coach.
Make a motion to approve the hiring of Paul Frank.
Question, second? Anybody?
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Elementary secretary.
Move to approve the hiring of Melissa Olson as elementary secretary.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Special education aid.
Move to approve Lincoln Whipple as the special education aide.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That concludes our business for the evening. Our next meeting
Well, hang on
is...
about that. The August 17th meeting, Carl, myself, and Aaron and Troy have been invited by 80 Young to go to the Brewer game that night.
Oh, good for you.
We'd like to go.
You can watch it on TV.
We'll broadcast it on here while we're
So, while we get invited, so we'd like to go.
It'll be just like that.
Could we push it back to the 24th? That's
Did
the
they
night
invite
that
the
Carl
board?
would like.
24th of August.
The other reason I like to push it back then is I'm going on vacation the week of the 8th, and so to get the board packet ready.
When is the annual meeting?
The annual meeting is the 25th of October. We pushed that back so we can approve the levy the same night.
Okay. I mean, that would be okay if we push that back to make it in time for the annual meeting.
The annual meeting is
We aren't
October
having the annual
25th.
meeting in August this year.
No, it's in October. It's in October. We did it, remember?
That's right, okay, yeah. Okay.
So it's on here, but we'd like to, yeah, you're trying to kill two birds with one stone.
Well, I'm just making sure we were
Yeah.
okay. Like,
Yeah, we're okay with that, yeah. So,
Okay,
Wednesday,
so we'll move
Wednesday the
them-
24th?
is that okay with you
Wednesday the
guys?
24th.
Yeah, that's our first choice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So our next regular meeting will be Wednesday, August 24th, and the annual meeting then is upcoming on October 25th. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried at 10:11 p.m.